I go around, I look at these experts these days talking about moon and tide. Let me tell you, tide doesn't matter. When you're sitting on a chunk for 20 hours, you're gonna fish every tide cycle twice. And if you're going out and you're fishing every night like you should be, you're gonna be fishing every moon phase anyway. Don't give me any of this Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin shit, Mars lunar landing. Nobody cares. Go out there and throw your chunk.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another week of Muskies on Tap. I am your host, Gus Manti. We got a really special guest on here tonight that we're really looking forward to having on. I just got to meet him in person at the Milwaukee Muskie Expo. Got Bryan Schaeffer on here, a expert of Northern Wisconsin, been guiding for I believe he said like 30 years, and he's got a lot of knowledge, and it's just great having him on the podcast. But before I get any further, let's introduce the other hosts on here tonight, part of the Mott crew. We got we'll go first off. We got none other than Max Manti. How you doing tonight, Max?
Good. Was really enjoyed our interview with Bryan tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed as well. Been watching him on Keys Outdoors now for quite some time. So to actually be able to sit down and chat with him in person was a pretty sweet experience. But yeah, other than that, things are going good. Looking forward to our ice fishing weekend coming up here that we'll touch on after the interview. Excited for a few shows, musky shows in my future. Haven't been to one yet this year. So yeah, got some things to look forward to get us through this hopeful last stretch of winter. And of course, I'm always just as excited to see the best guy, our guy, Brian Eckel, joining us here tonight on the pod. Brian, how we doing?
Oh man, I'm doing great. I appreciate the warm welcome as always. I had a blast talking to Brian. He's just a plethora of knowledge on Northwoods, Wisconsin muskies and muskies in general. Definitely would like to hook up with him at some point this year.
Hey, yo.
Yeah, I'll rephrase that. Definitely would like to meet him at some point this year. But anyway, yeah, looking forward to our ice fishing derby this weekend. Max is a defending champ, sadly, but not for too much longer. He's got about 3-4 more days to really, hype himself and his boys up. You already know Gus and I are coming for that trophy, but we'll get into that a little bit at the end. So yeah, Gus, what else did you take away from the expo this weekend?
Well, at the expo, I had a blast, absolute blast, meeting a whole bunch of people and getting to chat with some familiar faces as well. It was my first ever Milwaukee Muskie Expo experience. Only ever been to the Wausau show, but a good friend, Clayton Speece, and I went down. We carpooled down because we were both in the seminar on Saturday morning. We had a great time in that. That was a guide panel with Clayton, myself, and then also our good friend Peter Blickards. He also does the PMTT trail with his dad. He guides in the Eagle River area as well. So yeah, we had a really good time there. Good showing. Great questions that the crowd asked. We just overall had a really good time. Like I said, met a bunch of people at the show. This one, since I'm going to 2 other shows, I kind of tried to keep it not too crazy and really only buy the essentials on baits.
What'd you get? What'd you
parts
get?
and
Tell us what you got. What was the haul?
All right. The haul was so I got some leaders and a whole bunch of some blades and skirts and bait making or bucktail making materials from leaders and lures. Chatted with Gene, the owner, and he's a really awesome dude. Love what he's doing, love the leaders that he has. Got those 49 strand leaders for all of mainly our rubber baits. So that was one haul there. Picked up another SRJ, some extra hooks. Got the new Lake Edition Baby Beaver, which you saw. That was our bait of the week that Max just put out a few days ago when this pod drops. Man, I think I found some cranes there at the show. Picked up a couple cranes. Can never have too many of those. I think at TRO I got a drop tine growler, that spinnerbait, that small little one with the single 8 blade or something like that. I've been watching 54 Bust, and those guys have been smoking fish on those. So I figured to pick it up. Spinner baits aren't too expensive, so it was nice to just pick up one, maybe throw in the rotation here early season or in weeds or something. So looking forward to that. I think that was it for bait hauls for purchases, but did get to see Brett Wingfield, who was just on the previous podcast. He actually showed up on Saturday, I believe it was, and he had a little bait drop for us to check out for the year. He had a bowfin junior, so I finally got to see one in person, and that thing just looks gorgeous. It was painted like a kind of like a largemouth bass, olive and white color with a little bit of gold in it. It was pretty cool. I really can't wait to throw that thing. One of his diving rides, one of his like mid to large sized one, with a little adjustable weight in the middle too that you can, screw in, screw out. So that thing is going to be pretty sick to throw. And he was also touching on the last podcast that he custom paints tubes, and I didn't even know he was bringing this, but he got I got a custom painted crappie color 10-inch Red October, and man, does that thing look freaking gorgeous, man. That thing is gonna get chewed 100%.
That'll hunt.
That'll hunt. Hope I'm not forgetting anything. I think I just rambled everything off. Do you guys remember me sending you anything else?
No, sounds like it was a productive trip down there and got some cool new baits, met some folks. Sounds like some listeners were able to chat with you as well. So that's always cool. Meeting some people in person, sold some hats, and
Yep.
should be another good show here coming up soon too. And the next one's in Minneapolis, the Minnesota show.
Yep. That one is let me get out the dates for everybody. I think that's March 8th to the 10th. And I'm gonna be there all 3 days again, just like Milwaukee and just like Wausau. And with that one, I'm probably gonna be, I won't be walking around as much like the Milwaukee, which I think seemed to be a more difficult way of people finding me. But I think at Minneapolis, I'm gonna be hanging out in the TRO booth, Team Rhino Outdoors. So that'll be the place to find me in case you're walking around and looking for myself or Max. Max will be walking around at least 1 or 2 of those days, rocking some mott gear. But yeah, looking forward to that one. And I think with that being said, we'll do some more show recaps and such like that when the next ones come about. But without further ado, let's get right into that interview with Bryan Schaeffer. All right, everybody, here on the line with us tonight, we got Bryan Schaeffer up in northern Wisconsin, the Vilas and Oneida County area. Just got to meet Bryan in person at the Milwaukee Musky Expo. So, Bryan, how you doing tonight?
Hey, man, I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, we had a good time there, Gus. It was fun. Great meeting you, too.
Yep. Yes, we did. Yeah, we chatted some stuff up at the show, and then we and later on too. So
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was a good night.
You guys share some beer together or what?
A couple.
Yeah.
Yep, a couple.
We had a few
couple
discussions and
some about fishing, some about hunting, but yeah.
All good.
That's awesome. How's the drive back on Sunday morning?
That wasn't bad. Actually, it was Sunday evening because I had to work all day Sunday, and then we tear everything down, which takes about 2 hours, and then I finally got on the road. So I got on the road about 3:34.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
And you were working the Musky Innovations booth the whole weekend, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was at
Nice.
Musky Innovations.
Sweet. Well, before we maybe get into your background, how was the quad dog? I know I talked about that with you a little bit, but did you use that a little bit last year in the boat?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get my hands on them last year, and we put 5, 6 fish in the boat on it. Couple decent fish. So it's a nice bait. Pushes a lot of water. I like the new custom colors he has. We had the original batch. He changed it just a little bit since I had him, but caught quite a few fish that we ended up catching on them were after dark. So just kind of like a slow pump with a little pull to it, and it just pushes so much water. So it's a great bait.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, that's what you're describing to me, and I think when we get a couple, that's probably what we'll use it for, because it sounds like it pulls pretty damn hard. You said it pulled like harder than a pounder, pretty much.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Ooh.
It casts okay, but she pulls a little harder than a pounder. That pounder, you just lob them out there and they actually come in pretty decent, with the right equipment and everything. But with those 4 tails, it's a bucket. You're pulling against the bucket, So yeah, she's pushing water. I would like to hear it underwater and really hear what it sounds like.
Oh yeah, for sure. But anyways, I'm sure we'll talk about baits and stuff more tonight, but maybe for the listeners who for some reason don't know who you are, if you want to just give a quick background, if you want to start from the beginning, how you got into musky fishing, definitely go right ahead, but how you got to where you are and your guide service and some of the other stuff. I know you film with Keys, you've done some tournaments as well, so there's a long list.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, right now I'm right between Minocqua and Tomahawk. I guide Oneida, Lincoln, and Vilas, a little bit in Vilas. Actually, quite a bit in Vilas, just not towards your area, more west and north. But I basically started off down in Pewaukee. I started guiding down in Pewaukee. It's going to make me sound old, but about almost 30 years ago now, 20 years ago. So I guided about 3 years on Pewaukee and moved up here and been guiding the northwards ever since then. So
what got you to head north?
I was just spending a lot of time up here, and a job kind of brought me up this direction. So I moved up here and just started guiding part-time up here, and that's how it moved me up here. I would say about 28 years ago, I came up here through the job, and I just loved it up here. Pewaukee was really good at the time down there, but totally different world up here.
Were you doing like any trips and stuff with buddies prior to moving up there that kind of got you introduced to the area?
I was up all the time, every weekend. Yeah, every weekend. And then when the chance came to move up here, I jumped right on it. So yeah, I'm a transplant up here, but after 20 something years, almost 30 years, I feel like a local. So
I mean, it's I always am really excited to talk to people that have been fishing this area for a long time, just because I think my biggest curiosity always is like how it's changed, or if it's changed, from when you were doing trips with buddies back in the day to like, what you're seeing out there now. I mean, has it changed relatively, or has it stayed somewhat the same? I mean,
no, it's definitely changed. Definitely changed. Yeah, definitely changed. Certain waters I think gotten a little better, and and some waters not quite so much. I would say the sizes have came up. The numbers and action are a little lower, which I guess is expected for the number of fishermen that are fishing now compared to back then too. So you go out there and you might only see a boat all weekend or something. Now you might see 10. And if guys are catching fish, those are quite a few fish you're not going to catch or see too. So,
right. Yeah, no, that's good to hear that, maybe on average, the size is a little better. When you were fishing it back in the day, I mean, obviously I'm sure the techniques have kind of changed for you. Were you just going there, burning shorelines and doing that whole deal?
For sure. For sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Same, the twitch baits along the shoreline, bucktails, topwater, all the basics right along the shoreline going. I wasn't sitting out in the depths pounding away. I've learned a lot. You know, musky fishing's came a long way since 25, 30 years ago. So
Yeah. I feel like we're slowly figuring out what these things try to do.
Oh, yeah. It's come
it seems like you guys are right on it.
Yeah. With going into like technology and stuff, what was the first unit that you had? Like when did you get like that first? Was it GPS or was it like a 2D or?
No, I had a flasher.
A
I had
flasher?
flashers, yeah. I had an old Lund. My first boat was like an old fiberglass Lund. I forgot. You would see them like on old Linders shows. The tan Lund, yep. And I made it. My dad helped me make it into like a flat casting deck up on the front there. That was my very first boat. And then I went to Tuffy, and I started working with those guys, and I ran through Tuffy's, and then I went over the Ranger, pushing maybe 20 years ago. Worked with them for a while, and I'm still in a Ranger now.
So when you were like fishing back in the day with that tech, and then as things kind of started to progress, like obviously I'm sure there's been some lakes that have stayed in your rotation for a long time. Like, did you start to figure out stuff on, you know, lakes you've been fishing for 20 years? All of a sudden, like, holy shit, I didn't realize there was a, you know, mid-lake bar out here. Or did you kind of have it mostly dialed when you were, you know, fishing them back in the day? And
well, you think you did,
right.
but we really didn't compared to, you know, what we know now and everything. Yeah, you thought you know the lake really well. You knew the weed lines, you know where the weeds were, but yeah, as far as main lake humps, you know, old timers would tell you, yeah, there's a hump out there. And you'd cruise around for 20 minutes trying to find this hump and finally find it, you know, and that was before GPS. And then once you got GPS, you could at least put a dot there. And I used to have it was like a small handheld size one, you know, that we'd put right next to the flasher or the little Lowrance, you know, a small 2D Lowrance, put it right by it and say, oh, wow, we got this now. I felt pretty special.
It's funny because like we have a neighbor that lives close to us on the Eagle River chain, and he was like, yeah, you know, there's a great fishing spot out close to my dock because there's a bunch of cribs out there. And we're like, oh, no shit. All right. Well, we'll go check it out. And now, like, with the live scope and side imaging and stuff, we're, you know, running around. We're like, there's no freaking cribs out here.
Right.
Like, you know, this guy's talking about.
He's lying.
Yeah. He meant 15 years ago. They're gone now.
Yeah.
So it's just funny what you can kind of dig up. I mean, I remember when we first got that first side imaging unit. I don't know. We got like that Garmin, whatever it was. And we found that boat. Like clear as day, there was like a boat, and we were like, "Holy shit!" Like that's there, and we've been burning bucktails over that area for years, and we never even knew like there was a full on just rig down there at the bottom of the lake.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just remember because we used to stay on the Eagle River chain when I was younger too, and I would take the little rowboat out and I would just drift, cast along the shoreline, cast back up, drift, cast. And I remember this first boat that came with a trolling motor came by me, and I was like, oh my God, if I had one of those, the fish I could catch.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how we'd feel fishing off our dock when we were young kids. We'd be throwing bucktails off the dock for hours at the same freaking spot. And, you know, some guy would come through with his Ranger, and they would have three guys throwing back into us. We're like, God, if only we had that, we'd be on them, you know. And it's just kind of funny to think we used to just sit there and mindlessly fan cast at the same weed bed for hours and just waiting for one to swim by or get hungry or whatever. And you know, how things have changed. What are you running now? What's your setup
as far as electronics?
Yeah, boat wise, electronics.
Well, I have a Ranger 621, and then electronic wise, I have two Hummingbirds and a Garmin. I got 360 side imaging, and then the Garmin with live and, you know, GPS and the works on there. So I pretty much got it loaded down.
Sure. Nice. You like that 360?
I love the 360. I love it. Yeah. When I'm guiding, I can just keep the boat. When I guide, I don't fish, so I keep it on and I can just steer that boat just casting distance away from weeds coming. I can turn it and just keep us right in that perfect casting range, you know?
Yeah, sure. I got to see the 360 firsthand this past summer for the first time, fishing with Clayton, who you met, Bryan, at the show.
Oh yeah.
And it was awesome to look at. I would frickin' hope that Garmin, because we just run only Garmin's, but like, last year I was on the fence of getting just a small Humminbird unit just for a 360.
Sure.
I mean, if Garmin could make that, that would be cool. It seemed helpful. We were able to track fish that were swimming around the boat that, without having to do the old frickin' thing with the pole on live where people say, oh, you can
Right.
they leave it. Well, the 360, you don't have to touch anything. It just keeps rotating around. And, if they stay by the boat, you know where they are.
Right. And we've seen fish, off on sand in front of us, because like on your side imaging, you're already past them. So you got to cast back at them, which ain't the end of the world. But now you can see them in front of you also and cast at them. And it just tells you a lot. Having them all together is just a full package,
I haven't seen one really in person. Is it to the point where you can like pick them out of a weed bed and be able to tell when they're in front of the boat, or is it a little bit harder when there's cover in
It
the way?
depends how deep they are in the weeds. If they're higher in the weeds, you can pick them out. But if they're out in the sand, they just stand out like a sore thumb, just like your side imaging. You can see their shadows. It's the same. And I got the Mago. I got all newer graphs, so they just stand out.
So,
and it all depends on your, even like your side imaging and everything, your transducer. Guys always like, what's your setting on what settings are you using on that? And it really doesn't. I mean, it does matter, but it's all in your transducer placement, and how you have it set. Just keep playing with that transducer, and you're gonna get the perfect picture.
And that's on your trolling motor, I assume.
That one's on my trolling motor. Yeah, I'm using because I have a Trova, so I'm using that crappie. Oh boy, got me there. There's an adapter that goes on to the Trova.
Okay.
I can't think of the name of it right now, but.
Gotcha. So how was the the season for you? I was following you along on Instagram pretty closely and Facebook and whatnot, and it seemed like a good year. But how was 2023 for you?
It was decent. I mean, roller coaster. It started off really hot. I'm not a huge poster, so social media I need a little help on. I hear from my other side here that I need to post more, and I'm going to try doing a little more next year. But yeah, it was decent. I mean, we had some incredible days, and we caught quite a few big fish, but we also had some of the worst days too. I mean, some really piss poor days where we didn't even see a fish all day, and we'd hit like 3 different lakes. And at the end, I'm like, okay, we're going to a numbers lake just to put some fish in the boat or just to get some action. And we went there and nothing. So yeah, it was pretty rough. Couple days, but all in all, it was decent. They usually are. You got to take the good with bad.
Right.
So, yeah.
I don't care who you are. You're going to have some bad days. They're there.
Yep. That's for sure. We've had them in I've had them while guiding. I've had them fishing with these guys right here. We've had them in the tournament scene before, but you're saying that it started off hot. Do you mean that you like right out of the gate of northern opener, you're finding some fish?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Usually I'm lucky enough. I can figure them out pretty quickly in spring. I've never really had a problem with finding fish in the spring. It's the summertime and some of those dog days of summer that can get me going. So, and then when the extreme weather changes, but being on the water a lot, you seem to adapt to it and can find them. But you always get those days where sometimes at the weather, everything, you get the moon, the weather, and it's still it's like, where are these fish? And those days I haven't figured out yet,
Yeah. I think they pack their bags and head to shore, honestly.
Right.
Onto shore, I think.
Could be. Right next to it or something. But
yeah.
So yeah, those are the days that really get me going.
Oh, I bet. So you mentioned you need to post more or whatever, but when you were kind of starting out in your guiding career, like how did you market yourself back then when you were kind of getting going? Because you said you were a part-time guide, and then when did you make the transition from part-time to full-time?
Well, to start the story, actually, Bill Schwartz from Slammer Baits actually talked me into guiding. I was fishing every day down there. I was putting in probably over 100 fish in the boat in Pewaukee, and Pewaukee was pretty hot lake back then, so it wasn't, if you fished a lot, you were going to catch them. And he talked me into doing it, and so I started doing it, guiding down on Pewaukee down there, and basically it was just word of mouth, doing some seminars at musky clubs, because there wasn't the internet at that time. There was no Facebook or Instagram, so it was just word of mouth, pictures. Okay. So it's a lot easier now. You can start guiding now, put a bunch of fish pictures online, and move up pretty quickly.
Yeah, so when you made that full-time transition, was that kind of a big leap of faith, or did you feel pretty confident at that time you had a good kind of client base to move, into the full-time deal?
It was a little scary. The job I had, I can work. I got to work the hours I put in the work and then fishing. So it was kind of like a slow transition into guiding more throughout the summer. So it actually worked out really good for me with the job I had and musky guiding. So, and which I still work for the company. So,
oh, okay.
That's,
so you still
and I do that in the winter. Yep. And then, so that's what I do in the winter and fishing guide in the summer. So,
you're not out there grinding on the ice, setting a bunch of tip ups for people and whatnot.
I am not an ice fisherman. No, that's what I do. Get stuff ready, go to the gym, family time, some skiing and whatnot.
Yeah, I definitely know. I know that Bryan was very curious, or our Bryan was very curious about what your workout routine is, because we'd always joke around after watching some Keys episode that you're easily the most jacked musky angler out there. And I don't know. I mean, I feel bad for some of the muskies that get hooked by you, because I can't imagine they're feeling too good after.
Violent hook set.
Actually, I really don't have a super hard hook set. I got a couple friends, man. They shake the boat, when they hook in the fish, and they actually lose with this new braid line. Or I shouldn't even say new now. That shows my age too. But with this line we have now, you don't. Some of these guys just wham. It's like, oh. With rubber, it's a little different story, but top water and stuff. It's like, oh, I just shake my head. Oh my god, dude.
Yeah.
Well, but no, I don't really have a hard hook set myself. It's just kind of a nice snap and steady pressure on it.
That's the way to do it.
We've been talking a lot this winter about trying to anticipate or figure out what the new bait will be in the industry that like really catches fire and puts a ton of fish in the boat, something that's totally new. So throughout all your years guiding, I mean, what baits have burst onto the scene back to when you started that just felt like fish magnets for a while until maybe the pressure, everybody started getting them and they started losing their popularity a little bit?
Well, I would say, I mean, there's two for sure. You got the cowgirl and the bulldog. Those two changed musky fishing totally. I mean, and then there's a few afterwards, that came behind them, Medusas, and the tube is, really hot right now. But I mean, since I, really started, the two would be Musky Innovations and Musky Mayhem.
What was that like when you got your first bulldog in the boat? I mean, was it just pulling fish up to the boat nonstop? And what was that?
No, I think I had one in the boat for a while, in my box for a while, that didn't see water for a while. It sat there, it was like, oh yeah, I got to try one of these. I tried, I'm like, well, hell, how do you use it? But the bottom line, and even when I'm working the booth, guys come, and are like, yeah, I'm not a real rubber fisherman. I always wanted to try it. And I just don't know, and I'm like, once you start doing it and you try it and you go out there and work it and you catch your first one, it's like you get hooked instantly. You're a rubber fisherman. It doesn't, it's hard to start throwing anything else. And I tell everyone, I get clients out and, I'll get them out. They never fish open water or anything. And I say, once you get hit out here, you'll never want to fish weeds again. Because there's nothing like just ripping rubber out in the middle of nowhere else. And it just, bam, stops. And you're hooked, man. But yeah, I don't actually remember like when I first started getting hooked on rubber. I've been rubber fishing for a long time now. And I mean, when I do get the fish, that's what I'm throwing, rubber.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like those baits too kind of like force. I mean, you talked about like, how they changed musky fishing. Like I feel like they kind of forced the industry to like start making different gear too, you know, to like be able to
for
throw
sure.
double
For
tens,
sure.
pounder, like you have to start upping, you know, beefing up the rods, beefing up the reels. So it's like kind of forced the musky industry to get bigger, you know, equipment
Yeah.
wise, it feels like. And
Right. You're dead on. I mean, because you think when those came out, and you see like the Cowgirl came out in probably around 07, 06. Bulldog was even before that. I don't even know the exact year, but I mean, I'm sure the longest rods back then were like 8 feet, 7, 6, 8 feet. And, you know, everything was probably a 6,500 or I don't even know, probably all 6.5 2 gear, maybe some 4-to-1, but yeah, it was pretty brutal.
so do you remember when the light bulb kind of came on for you and you're like, oh, wait, there are some fish out not in the weeds? Like, was that, how long ago was that you started pushing out and fishing
Good
some of this
question.
open water?
Yeah, you know, time flies so much. I'd like to say about 10 years ago, 5-10 years ago, but you would think it doesn't seem, but time just flies. So it might even be worse.
Yeah.
But if I was a betting man, I'd bet about 10 years ago.
Okay. So you started pushing out and fishing bait balls and
Oh yeah,
realized pretty quickly that all of a sudden this is actually legit.
And I forgot who really started me onto it. I'm not gonna, you know, a little bit of Rizzo because he would throw those small bucktails out there, and I forgot the guy from Fond du Lac area that used to write some articles, and he would throw big cranks out suspended. And I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. But just reading his article, and then some of the deeper lakes that I have in the area, we just started fishing them, trying it. And also, like I said, just with the rubber too, the first fish you catch out there, all of a sudden it's just like a skyrocket in your confidence, and you do it more and more, and then you get a couple of those good days where you're catching 2-3 fish out there, and now you're hooked. You know?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen some of those? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
It just took a while to really dial it in, and you know, figure it all out. And I mean, you never figure it all out, but I mean, you know, get a little better and a little more confidence at it, you know, instead of just winging baits out there.
Yeah. I mean, the lakes here are very dynamic. They'll change year to year and stuff like that. But when you did first target the fish in open water and maybe, you know, take notes through the years, and I'm sure you still fish those same exact lakes to this day. Are you finding them in like the same little areas out there or transition areas, or are you kind of finding new spots on those same lakes that they kind of go to? Like, is it a thing where once opener happens, you got to find that spot for the year, find those areas, or are you just checking the same ones?
You know what? It changes sometimes year from year, but generally, you know, the good deep flats or big deep rock points coming off and just off of those are generally always pretty good. So yeah, the spots normally stay good. It all depends on the bait per year, you know, water temperatures and everything. But you know, a good area will always hold the bait when they're coming out, unless they're going into the weeds. But once they go out suspended, they're going to hold in those general areas. Since you know, all the time. So
yeah, I know in the guide panel that Clayton, Peter, and I were in, there's actually a good amount of questions about bug hatches and stuff, and I'm assuming that's when you really like to target the open water, or is there another time of year you like to target them?
just right before that, you know, we're getting some, you know, in some lakes they're suspended out there year round. You know, there's just some fish that just stay out there year round. But obviously, right when that bug hatch, and I'm still not perfected that. I know a lot of guys got that a little down, a little better than I do, but that still can get me. You know, that whole bug hatch thing there can throw me for a loop at times. But
I think that's the hardest time of the year, I think, for just about anybody. I think that's when it can be very, very good or very bad. That's what happened to me in June. It was either very bad or very good. I didn't have any maybe like 2 in between days, you know, for myself, I think last year.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's either really good or bad, but that's like the real start of when you really start getting some of those open water areas. And, you know, it's kind of like the door opening for summertime, and a lot of that bait starts moving out. You get those first really warm days, and then, you know, you get that sun. When the sunny days, you know, we'll get that bait up a little higher a lot. in those earlier times too. So I know a lot of guys think, well, we're going out there deep, we're going to fish deep, so let's get some big rubber. And like in June, which normally during the bug hatch and everything, we won't even use like big rubber that goes real deep. You want to kind of stay up on the top, you know, crankbaits. I mean, even topwater work at times, glide baits. You can throw rubber, but we'll throw unweighted rubber, you know, those unweighted tubes, stuff like that. You don't want you get underneath them that time of year, you ain't gonna get anything. So,
well, I mean, you're looking at your graph, and you're like in, you know, you can be in like a 18-foot mud flat, and there's bugs that are on your graph up to like 4 feet down. You know what I mean?
right?
Just covering the
Yep.
entire thing. It literally looks like your electronics are like malfunctioning at times with how much the screen just like fills up. All right, well, I'm not to shift gears too big time here, but something I'm pretty excited to talk to you about here tonight is the whole filming thing with Keys. When did that start? When did you get hooked up with Keys? How'd you meet him?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I'll start off so one of my clients was Dave, which back in the days, he was a cameraman for Keys. He actually had a cameraman in the boat. Not every shoot, but a lot of shoots. And I think he actually did some shows with him. And he was one of my clients. We talked about it. And then there was a tournament on the Petenwell Flowage. It was a spring tournament, just the Petenwell tournament. And I went and fished that one time, and Dave and Keys was fishing. So I met Keys, and this was probably 20-something years ago. And since then, we just became friends. You know, we talked all the time, and we actually did a couple shows in between that time throughout the years, but we always kept in touch, you know, and I'd see him out, you know, him and Dave or him and Steve and stuff. I'd see him out and talk to him. And then, what was that, about 4 or 5 years ago now? I think 5 years ago, he was fishing with Dave. I was fishing the PMTT with Sam Ubel from Chase Nation. We had a really good year.
You guys won. Eagle River won, right?
Eagle River, yeah, we won. We did really good that year. We missed Kentucky that season and just fished the rest of them and ended up like in second or third for team of the year. Yeah, we placed like top 5, I think, in every tournament. It was just one of those years. Everything came together, you know, because I met Sam actually called me because he was watching things that were going on and said, hey, you want to do this tournament? I can get some backing for us and everything. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So, but anyhow, back to Keys. So then that next winter, we decided, well, we ain't going to do it. It's just too much time and all that. It was awesome. It was a nice run for a year, but let's take a year off and discuss it again next year. And I was working a musky show, I think it was in Milwaukee or something. And then Keys came up to me, we started talking, and he wanted to know if I wanted to fish with him. And I was like, whoa, what happened to Dave? And well, those guys, both of them, they kind of went their own way. Dave, you know, started working with his brother with the lure company and everything. And I was like, well, talked to my wife about it. And I was like, yeah, what do you think about that? I mean, well, it's kind of stupid. I should really fish with Keys on that there. So ended up fishing with Keys on the PMTT. And that first year, same thing. We placed in every tournament. Didn't win one. I think we took second or third in 1 or 2 of them. But and then since then, we've just been fishing together. And started doing more shows with him. And I can only do so many because of guiding and everything. So I got to fill in the holes there. But and then as far as me and him doing the PMTT, I guess the PMTT just wanted to go their own route without Keys Outdoors. So, and
it's bummer.
Yeah. We're all right, because it was like we could either take a week to go fish a PMTT tournament, or can we take a week to go to Minnesota and fish? So I mean, you want to go to a lake with all the best fishermen in the United States that have been pounding it for a week, or you want to go to a lake and have it to yourself?
Yeah, it's a good point. I do remember. I just remembered that Eagle River one because it was like, I don't know, not too long ago, and I was just kind of messing around on YouTube, and that like a random shuffle video came up, and it was the one Keys episode where you guys won Eagle River. And I remember watching it and I think it was your guys' last fish you caught. and it was just like a freaking insane fight. Like the thing,
Yeah,
I don't even know it was like a 40 or whatever, but it like just took you guys around on a freaking roller coaster ride. And my heart was beating watching the video, being like, I could not imagine a fight. Because we had
believe me, I was
scared
shitless. Yeah. We knew we needed that fish. And it was like, oh my God. And it just did not. I think it was a 38 or a 40.
And
it fought like a freaking lake trout or a coho salmon or something. I mean, it did not. It just kept taking line out and coming around. And yeah, that was a crazy tournament. But that was just one of those tournaments too that it was just you couldn't do anything wrong. We did lose quite a few fish during that tournament, and the whole game plan changed that morning. We pre-fished one day, had all of our spots down. We seen one fish in one spot, and that had current in it. So then that night I came home and I'm like, okay, I started thinking, I'm like, oh, that didn't go too well, but there was current. So I'm like, okay, dudes, the Saturday of the tournament, we met there. I'm like, we're changing plans, man. We're just going to fish current.
No
that was
way.
the year where the buoys were like laying down because there was so much current. We had so much rain. Yeah. So we're like, we're just going to fish current areas. But I think everyone else had that same idea because we went in the river going towards Waters Meet.
Yeah.
And the first spot I said, I'm not going to say it on here, but I said, we got to hit, there's always fish there. And a boat stopped right before we got there. And then dude's second cast, he sticks a fish right in front of us. I'm like, oh. But we started fishing the river and there was like, everyone was in there. I'm like, this is nuts. So we just thought about it. And I'm like, you know what? This water is coming through this whole system and it's coming through these rivers. The narrows are where everyone was fishing, but the lakes, there's an area on that lake where that current's going to come through to get to the next area. And then we concentrate on just those areas and no one was really fishing them. And that's where we caught all the fish. And end up working good. Nice. Yeah.
Just pretty much fishing the chain like it's a river or a flowage system.
Pretty much. Yeah. Because when it comes from this area, it's going to run right down this shoreline to the next one. And we just concentrated not on the narrows, the rivers, but the shorelines where that current or whatever area that current was going to come through. And it paid off. Like we didn't even see many follows. It was bites where we talked to a lot of other guys and it was all, we seen 10 fish, but we just couldn't give them a bite. So,
welcome to the chain.
Right.
Yeah, when they're going though, it's crazy there. I mean, it really is. Like
right.
When those fish turn on, it's actually kind of dumb sometimes. How many are in there? You're like, are you guys always just here and you just wanted all of a sudden decide to eat today or what's going on? I mean, it gets gnarly. And then another one I watched recently was you guys did well in Minnetonka and we're heading there this year. So I don't know. I mean, that seems like an interesting body of water. I don't know. We're a little bit, I don't know. Would you say, Gus? It's not apprehensive, but just it's going to be an interesting tournament. I think.
What month is that?
Late August. I think it's like third or fourth weekend of August. And yeah, I mean, I'm it's hard to say how I'm feeling about that one. It's just another, well, it's giant. I mean, I don't know what to compare it to in size. I don't know if it's bigger or smaller than the Chippewa flowage. I feel like, I don't know. Somebody said it was like
I don't know. I know it's big. I don't know what one would be bigger. I know I'd rather fish the chain than the chip. The chip has my number, so I'm okay with going anywhere besides the chip. But I think it's beautiful, but
yeah, those muskies were pretty difficult to find for some reason. I just don't know.
Yeah, the chip has my number, man. Been there quite a few times, and it just like hats off to Ty and all them that crush them out there because I can't figure it out for nothing. I struggle. I'm always on the struggle bus there.
We were on the bus big time, but with flowages, well, I guess before I get into that, with Tonka, that time you went there with Keys, was that your first and only time there, or did you?
Yes, that was my first, but Keys was there, I'm sure, a few times before we were there, so he had some spots. But I'm trying to think back to what month that was. I'm thinking it was September. The biggest drawback there is the boat traffic, and large boats, and they're not afraid to I'm right next to you.
Yeah.
And a lot of them.
Yeah. Did you fish near a
But-
lot of like high traffic areas, or did you try to stay away? Because
Well, pre-fishing we did, and we found out that was a terrible idea. So
Okay.
then we started fishing some other spots where it wasn't too bad. But, you know, I heard some of those narrows, you know, guys catch fish right in the narrows where all the boats are coming through and all that, kind of just like the Eagle River chain, you know.
Yeah.
So the fish are used to it. It's just, I wasn't.
Yeah.
And the boats there are quite a bit bigger than the ones we run into up here, you know. You get 30 footers and they're going about 10 miles an hour with a 4-foot weight coming off it, about 20 feet away from you. So it can get brutal.
Nothing better.
Yeah.
So-
It's fun.
So when you're doing the shoots, like what, I guess, you know, I'm always curious to kind of talk to people about this with like filming and fishing, because it's kind of different. I mean, a little bit. Obviously, you're doing the same things, but when you got the cameras rolling and you know that the show's about to be broadcasted to thousands upon thousands of people, you know, I guess what was that like when you kind of started doing them? Did you feel like you fished any differently or acted any differently, or was it just kind of an adjustment period and same old once you got used to it?
Yeah, I didn't fish differently, but it was brutal because you don't think of it. You know, when I'm fishing, I can talk, blah, 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 blah. I'm not the biggest talker, you know, even on podcasts, seminars, anything. I'm just, I got to get it squeezed out of me. But when I'm in a boat, I'm just blah, 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 blah. And then when I fish with Keys, we're talking just normal and all that. And all of a sudden he grabs the camera and he goes, "What just happened? Tell me what just happened." And I go, you know, you just go brain dead.
Yeah.
I go,
Yeah.
wow, something so basic, you know, I've been doing it forever. Tell us what just happened. It's like, oh my God. I'm better at it now, but it's still just, sometimes it catches me off guard and it's just like, dang, I would like to think about this for a little bit so I can at least sound somewhat intelligent.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel any better, we've failed to launch any sort of YouTube videos now for like 2 years. But when we when we were doing one, I think it was like last year, and I caught this nice fish on a slammer, like early season, you know, just like a textbook crankbait, whatever. And I remember, you know, we were thinking about doing a video out of it because we had a bunch of like great footage and yada yada. And Gus is like, "All right, well, you got to sit down and, you know, talk about the bait and tell me like what you did or whatever." And I sit down and like, it was just freaking word vomit. I started laughing and I'm like looking at our buddy Bryan, who him and I have, you know, sometimes not the easiest time being serious in the boat. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I literally can't just.
You had to go drop me off.
We literally had to drop him off. And I'm like, all right, now I can do it. And even then I'm like, oh, I caught a fish on a slammer and it hit pretty hard and it was a good fight. And
right,
you know,
that's what I'm saying.
Early season, it's good to use these crankbaits, and you're like, God, you just feel like such an idiot sometimes. So
Exactly. Yeah, it's amazing how someone can ask you something and you can just turn around, bah, 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 bah. But then all of a sudden they got a camera and it's like, and then especially if you got someone like Bryan there, you know, laughing at you and doing things, then it's even worse.
Oh my God.
yeah, and Keys isn't afraid to put that camera up real close to the face either.
No, especially with the new ones too in 4K. I'm like, dude, come on! I don't even know the last time I shaved or anything.
Yeah, you got to be having like a good skin day, good hair day, everything with the cameras now. It's a whole different world. That's cool. I mean, I would imagine, like, obviously, you know, tournament fish, catching a big fish in a tournament's a big rush, but like when you get one on a Keys shoot, I'd imagine that's probably pretty big adrenaline
It is
rush
awesome
for you guys.
It is awesome. It is awesome. You know, and a lot of the downfall on it though, we get a fish, and because he has that show, and I mean, he's such an artist with it, so you have to tell the story. And you know, like feeding windows, you get this fish, you get these feeding windows, they're short, you catch one, and I'm always to the point where like, let's get it back, let's go, and he's the opposite. It's like, no, we got to film, we got to tell a story, we got this, because that's what the show is about. And I get it, he knows it, he's been doing it for 30 years, you know. And I'm the one that's just, yep.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I used to just pick him up like, boom, he's like, hey, what are you doing? So he would yell at me for that. But Yeah, so it's a whole story behind it. So that can get rough sometimes because they might only be 10 minutes.
Right. And you're trying to put a show together, and difference between 1 and 2 fish is a big deal. And I mean, do you have a favorite shoot that you guys have done together?
No, not really. They're all fun. I mean, obviously the ones you catch more fish on are a lot nicer than the ones you get skunked, because we've done plenty of them where we got skunked. Yeah. They can get brutal. We've done a couple trips where it's like 4 or 5 days and we see like 2 fish. Trying some new trying new waters, because like he wants to always try these waters. It's always an adventure, he says, and I'm always like, go do it with someone else when they're really hard adventures like that. Take someone else,
Yeah. Of the places you're allowed to say to the listeners here, where was the favorite place that you went and filmed with Keys? Where did you go? Are there any ones that were pretty far away, like out of state, that you went to with them? Or
well, the show that's playing actually this past weekend and next weekend, Leech Lake, is probably my favorite.
Oh, nice.
I mean, that's my favorite lake in general.
Really?
I love that body of water. That shoot,
fish wise, or what about it?
Fish wise, the area, just everything about it. I love Leech Lake area. I love the lake. But that shoot was a really good shoot too. I think we got 5 or 6 fish over 48 and a half in the 3 or 4 days. So it made up for some of those other days that I was speaking about earlier. When you get trips like that. So but I love that lake. As far as tournament lakes though, I love fishing Iowa. I don't know if you guys ever fished over there. That Spirit and I think Okeechobee or something like that. I forgot the name of it, but hopefully they go back there. Man, there's a lot of big fish over there. And when we did that shoot,
I don't know if that's like still holding the most fish in a PMTT ever record or something like that. I feel like I know they caught a ton, like 86 in one day or something.
Yeah, it was insane.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, God, was it that or Webster? I don't remember. You might be right. I think it was over there on Spirit.
Yeah, I know Webster over in Indiana, they stock that really, really heavily. Have you fished out there before in Indiana?
Yeah, that's when I fished with Sam. And it was super tough fishing in the first day. We got a 39 and a half, and we're like, yeah, we're pounding our chest. We're like, yeah, I wonder how many fish I caught. And we're thinking, maybe 5, 6. We get back and we were fishing the chain over there, and everyone was on Webster, and like every boat out there caught 3 or 4 fish. It was crazy. We got back, we're like, oh, but they're all smaller fish. Majority of them were 32s, 33s. So we were like, if we want to get in this, we're going to catch some more fish or a big one. And that's when Sam got that 49 and a half, which in the PMTT is big points. So I think we ended up we skipped over majority of the teams just with them 2 fish and took like 3rd or 4th or something like that. So
but I remember Keys came, I think he came to your boat and filmed that fish. I think maybe.
No, that year when I fished with Sam, we had Jeff, his partner on Chase Nation, film with us, and he filmed in the boat the whole time. And then Keys was like, I'll take all that footage. So
that's right.
That's how there was so much footage of that year with Sam and I fishing, because we had Jeff in the boat and he did the camera work, so which is pretty nice.
It's always nice to get a 49 and whatever and some change especially if you're talking about like day one, because Gus and I always joke, like we look at the Facebook updates when we're out there, and it's like there's nothing worse than like when you're struggling or like the bite's slow in your boat and you're like, yeah, it's got to be slow for everyone else. And then Tim hops on there and is like, yeah, bite's been crazy this morning. We got doubles, we got triples. It's like, what the hell is going on? We got to figure it out now.
Oh, that's a killer. Or when you see boats next to you and they got the net and the judge boat goes, it's like, generally when I get them, it's tough. And if we're smoking them, it's like, oh God, everyone's smoking them. All of a sudden you find out no one is. But when I think it's super tough, then everyone seems to be getting them. Kind of the opposite of
Well, it's like the tournament thing with watching somebody else catch a fish is just like the most frustrating thing. Like, I mean, we dealt with it on the chip during the championship. We were hammering a spot forever. We knew there were fish there. We moved off of it, and lo and behold, another boat pulls in right after us, and they pop one. And all we needed was like one fish, right? And so we were pretty pissed, whatever. And like I remember we went to the tournament headquarters that night, and I was taking a leak next to a guy, and he's like, "How'd you guys do today?" And I was telling him, I'm like, "Yeah, we were on the spot with loaded with fish. We couldn't get them to go, and we had them up to the boat, all this stuff, and that boat came in and freaking caught one right in our back door." And he was like, "Oh yeah, where was that at?" And I realized it was him.
Oh, really? It was the guy that you were telling the story to.
Yeah, I was like,
I think Gus, you told me that story over the weekend. Yeah, that's pretty brutal. That hurts.
That one was tough. That was a spot I think I said where we passed through it, and I watched and looked to my left, right where we are. Both of us already cast, and I watched a muskie eat bait on the surface and start just like eating bait up shallow. I'm like, all right, this is not to be. So that's the chip. Chip's got our numbers too, kind of. I mean, I know we got some fish in the tournament, but man, that's for the amount of hours that we were putting in. That was pretty brutal.
Right, and I'm a big flowage fisherman too. I guide a lot of flowages, but that is a totally different body of water from any flow. I fish all the flowages here on the Wisconsin River, but that chip is completely different animal.
Yeah,
completely
seems
different
that way. So with since I think I was going to ask a question earlier on the flowages, and I knew that you like to fish flowages around here. When do you like to go fish flowages? Because I know we have all these lake options up here, but
yeah, isn't that great though? I mean, we got so much here. We got the deep clear lakes, we got small bodies of water, we got rivers and flowages. I mean, just so many options. But I start the flowages right opening weekend. Always start right in the flowages. Yeah. Because they seem to be pushing ahead. A lot of guys, go to the smaller lakes just for the action and stuff, but I get a lot of larger fish right off the bat opening weekend fishing flowages. So
yeah,
I was just gonna ask with the opener, I'm sure in all of our listeners' heads, what's your game plan each opener? Does it stay the same? Are you starting out deeper and pushing in shallower? How do you tackle opening day? What's your game plan going into it?
Generally, it's always the same because I'm hitting the flowages. I might hit different ones, but generally, you get that right before opener. I won't go all the fish, but a big amount of them are spawning upriver by the dams. You get all them fish up spawning there. So generally, they're always starting to work their way down, but there's always quite a few larger females up there and larger fish, and that's why I normally hit the flowages right away, and then I'll head upriver and I'll work it down. Stump fields, little coves, any down trees. You get the trees along the shoreline are just money.
Are you working main current stuff, or are you kind of getting into some back bay eddy areas?
Both.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, a little bit of both. The fish will tell you. You got to kind of almost, because every year is a little different. One year, one area might be really hot, and next year you won't see nothing there, and all of a sudden they're on that other area. So you got to try everything. The fish will tell you. But the bottom line is, I just go all the way up, and then I just start working down.
Yeah.
And then once you find them, then it starts getting easier because then you can just start looking around and.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask, if they stack up pretty good. Because I know in lakes, sometimes there's like certain weed beds that just all of a sudden will hold a lot of fish. I don't know if it's kind of like that in the river, or if they're kind of miscellaneously plopped here and there behind some logs or areas that you fish.
It's kind of the same as what you just say. You might come to one spot and there's quite a few fish in that one little area because maybe a bunch of them just came down, and then they kind of just go in their own little back bays, or a weed point might have a few fish on them. A down tree might have 2 or 3 fish sitting by it.
Yeah, with all the tight cover in rivers, do you mark bait regularly, or is that not an important thing you're looking for?
Yes and no. I don't and this is one thing I really found out with the forward facing live scope, and I have my side imaging. I mean, it reads really nice, but a lot of that bait you just can't see on that. And when I started running live scope, it was amazing how much was down there. So until I had that, I really didn't know. But now that I have that, so yes, there is a lot of bait there. At first, I thought it was just more structure we were fishing and them working down. But once I put the live scope down there and noticed how much bait's actually really running through and hanging by like some of those trees and stuff, it's pretty amazing.
Well, Gus, if you remember when we were fishing the chip, like when we were pre-fishing, we couldn't mark bait. Like we were like, God, where is the bait? And then the day before the tournament started, it was like dead flat calm, not a breath of wind, super sunny. We were just like drifting up onto weed beds, and you would just see massive schools of like perch and bluegill. And like those were the weed beds we were marking to come back and fish the next day. Unfortunately, a lot of shit changed in a span of like 24 hours for us. All the weed beds we had marked with bait on, we would, fish them, and we would drive past them after we were done. We're like, it's all gone. I don't know where any of these things went. They're just see you later. But that was kind of the same thing, like just visually seeing actually how much bait was up, just hanging into this stuff, like was crazy to see. And yeah, with the live scope, like that's just been a game changer to understand that these fish swim around and they're kind of just everywhere. And that was like very eye opening for us. Like it just was nuts to see where these things end up moving to.
Right. That's one tool. I mean, I've learned a lot from fish from using, live scope. It's a pretty amazing tool. I'll tell you that much. You see a lot from your side imaging and down and everything else. But that just in 1 year, what I've learned from their actions are pretty amazing.
Do you use live scope in the fall when you're sucker fishing? Do you keep it pointed back at your suckers at all?
Yeah, I do. And we were actually just having this conversation this weekend about, do we think it interferes in the fish biting it, And it was pretty crazy that, and I brought this up to another couple other guys too, and they totally agreed with it, that they thought it did. Because we would watch fish just come up, and I don't know if it was just the year that they were doing this, swimming around bait a lot and just taking off, but we'd watch them come up to the sucker, swim around it, go around it, and sometimes for 10, 15 minutes, and then just take off.
So frustrating.
And I'm thinking, okay, it is a strong signal coming off that. So, are they feeling that and they're not too sure or nothing? And the fish we were getting this year were the ones that I didn't have the live scope on. So
I think we got one with it facing, the one in particular, Max, where we took it over that log, that log. Remember that one?
Yeah, but that was a whole. We were talking about this ad nauseum this fall as well, because we were experiencing the same thing, like 8, 9, 10 fish a day coming up to suckers and not doing anything. And then we were fishing kind of a flowage type system, and we were actually sucker fishing in some pretty tight cover. And we were kind of using the live scope to, essentially just move the suckers around down timber and stuff. It was the only time I've ever seen it happen where I literally was watching the live scope and I have the sucker rod in hand, and I was just slowly bringing the sucker over like a kind of an upside down U-shaped tree. And as the sucker got down on the other side, like this muskie just shot out of the timber. Never even saw it on the live scope. You couldn't see it. And it just shot vertical, and I just crushed the sucker right on live scope. And
that's awesome.
And I just had it in my hand and starts peeling line. So we were thinking, like, with this live scope thing, like, do you need to be literally like, in ambush spots where the fish isn't getting beamed and sitting there looking at it in 30 feet of water? Like, that was a total reactionary thing where that fish was just sitting there, looked up, boom, saw it. I mean, it didn't sit there and think about it,
After just hearing you, it's like he didn't get to feel the beam till it was too late. He already had his mind made up. He was eating that sucker. So it didn't just sit there and swim around the sucker, because the ones that just swim around the sucker, I didn't get any of them last year. I couldn't get any of them to hit.
It's good
You
to know.
you try
Weird. So
yeah, this is the same with us. Did you try like turning it away or turning the unit off
oh
sometimes?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I talked to Rob Mantha on it too, and he kind of said the same thing, and he turns it off. So I would turn him off, but then we'd sit there for a little while. I'm like, turn it back on, check. Oh, he's still there. Turn it off again. I'm like,
That's what we did all fall.
A whole fall. Yep.
Yeah. So we did the same thing, but the few fish we did get on suckers were all on the one that I didn't have the live scope either on or wasn't pointed at it. Was on the other side of the boat. So,
Yeah.
and maybe it was just that weird year. I don't know. Like I said, I only had it for a year. I haven't had it for multiple years that I can compare. But as far as my fall last year with suckers, that's my open with live scope.
I think I'm agreeing with that too. I think we just had it for what, Max, 2 falls or like 2 years open water worth.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing the other year too.
Yeah. And it makes you think though, it's like, is it the beam of the live scope, or are you just more aware of actually how many fish come up and look? And
Exactly.
eat,
Right. I mean, was that happening all the time? You never knew because we didn't have live scope on it,
Yeah. Because I
mean, sometimes if you got the sucker by your side imaging, sometimes you catch them on there, but a lot of times they're not in that, so you don't even see it.
Yeah. I mean, it felt like 2 years ago we had a few multiple sucker fish days, and we didn't really have that this past year with the live scope running. So I guess that might be the sample size to take, because it's like, you see 8 or 9, 10 fish come up to your suckers on live scope, but I've never had a 9, 10 fish sucker day before.
Right.
So it's not like, so it's hard. I mean, I agree that I think to some extent there's got to be some negative. And if anything, the fish are going to continue to learn, right? I mean, you hear about it, this vermilion thing.
Exactly.
Started popping off. You hear some guys talk about vermilion, like the fish won't get within 30 feet of their boat with the live scope pointed at them. So, I mean, I would assume with sucker fishing in northern Wisconsin, the more people that get it, eventually these fish are just going to start to realize that if they feel that beam, they're, they know what happens next.
Exactly. And I think, a lot of people are freaking out on live scope and all that. And I think it's all going to take its turn, just like you said, in vermilion, they're going to get used to it. And then it's just going to be what it is. And it's going to be used for kind of what we use it for, depth control, weed control, everything, There's so much uneducated people talking about live scope, and even, talking to some big name fishermen, I talked to them about it and they're like, oh yeah, I don't want to just drive around the center of the lake and look for fish and fish for fish like that. I'm like, do you think that's all it does? It's pretty crazy, but
yeah,
it actually amazes me.
With one unit, I guess maybe we just suck at it, but we've never, like, we can't find them doing that, at least from our experience. Like,
right.
We fished some open water.
Accident.
Yeah, like maybe they'll come into the screen and okay, cool, but like, I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe with the multiple units, it could be different if you're not even putting the trolling motor down and you're just driving around with 4 units. I could see that probably crosses some interesting lines, but
I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
That's a whole nother world right there.
Right.
But,
yeah.
If you're out there fishing already and you're just, watching your baits and controlling your depth control and just checking things out and you see a fish out there, I mean, that's a whole nother ball game then, like I said, 4 or 5 units, and you hear guys complaining that, they got it, now they're catching all these big fish and everything. And I guess if that's the way they want to fish with 4 units and just drive around and catch their fish, then, so be it.
Right. And obviously
you do.
Oh, go ahead.
You do you, I'm going to do me. That's not my way of fishing. I've fished these fish long enough. I know how to catch them either way, with it or without it, but I've learned a lot with it. So,
Right. Yeah. And as long as, I mean, the one big thing that we hope people don't do for the people that just drive around, if they want to do that, so be it. But the one thing obviously we all want to not see is pulling fish from deep, as we
exactly.
That's the one big thing probably. But,
and that, that is the problem with, and well, the only really problem I can think of with it is that they can do that because those fish will eat when they're 40, 50 feet down. They will come up and eat a bait, but there's no saying that same fish the guy's trolling and they're not coming hitting that too. But when those guys are targeting that, that does give the whole sport and those electronics just a bad name, terrible name, you know. But I mean, when you got stuff like that, you know, I mean, most deer are shot with crossbows, you know, at night with a crossbow that are poached, you know. Are we going to get rid of crossbows too? For the deer's sake? I don't know.
Yeah. So you said you've taken a lot away, like that you've learned a lot. What would you say the biggest thing that you've learned from using it?
Just the behavior of fish during different weather patterns, you know, and their behavior. And working lures and the depths you actually think they're going at and how you were working them compared to what you're actually where you're at and how you were working it. So I've really learned a lot just from the lures and on the depth control and how to work them down breaks, you know, and you think you're working it slow enough and it's getting down that weed line, but you're missing just big areas that is difference between catching and absolutely nothing, you know.
Right.
But mainly just the behavior of the fish during different weather patterns and just different, you know, times of the day.
Yeah.
So,
were you able to get any fish that maybe were like a hot follow but didn't eat in the figure eight and then it hung around the boat? Were those fish still gettable sometimes? Maybe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And like when I guide, and the thing is, I don't even have it out all the time. I'll have it out here and there when we're fishing certain areas just to, you know, watch. I have it out a lot right away when I take them out in the deep water and just see how their baits are working and tell them, you know, you're going to have to let it drop down just a little deeper, you know. We're working this weed edge. It's down 20 feet, you know, so just drop it down. I'll see when they're at. And I've already seen fish come up, you know, flying up. And that one time I was like, oh man, you got a fish. And he set the hook instantly before the fish even hit the bait. Like, oh, okay. I guess I spoke a little too soon, but
right.
Yeah, I've seen them come right up, follow, and then back off a little bit, and all of a sudden they come up and they might come up on one of the other baits coming through. But
yeah. Have you, this is, I don't know if you've had this happen. I don't think I have yet. And I've contemplated what I'll do if I see this. Have you seen somebody's bait coming through and then maybe you have the live scope on it, you know, that particular time of the day and you see a fish coming? Are you going to tell them like, hey, there's a fish, or hey, do a good figure eight, quote unquote, or just say nothing and let them do it? Like what's the procedure there? Because I've always contemplated that.
Yeah, well, now it is your middle half. Do a really good figure eight because of that time when I said you got a fish and he set the hook, and so many other times when I said you got a fish, and then they just fall apart, you know.
Yeah.
And so I now I just say make sure you do a really good deep figure eight.
I think that's what I would do too, 100% in that situation, because you don't want them to lock up because, you know, it might be somebody who just learned to figure eight that day, or maybe they're new to the sport, you know, because sometimes that happens. I know you've probably seen it tenfold, way more than that than I have, where you have a client that was doing good figure eights all day and then all of a sudden a fish just comes flying in and then they can clam up, you know, right in that situation.
Well, I personally have done that plenty of times too. So.
Oh yeah.
Gonna say,
you're doing good ones and you're tired. All of a sudden, like all of a sudden, oh yeah, there's a fish.
It's kind of like they know when you're just trying to take a breather or something. That's when they come up and just scare the absolute shit out of you.
How many fish have you had hit, you know, when you're just messing around or going down to do something on your locator, or you just turn around and start talking to someone and then it's like wham, and you don't get a good hook set because you're totally off balance or something. It's like, are you kidding me? I just been fishing 4 hours straight, and in 1 second I turn around and say something, I get hit.
I have that issue. I have that issue a lot. Like when I fish rubber for a long time, like you know, my back starts to hurt or like your shoulder hurts, and you kind of like get a little happy feet and like you're repositioning. And it always seems like when that starts to happen, it's like, okay, there's going to be a fish that hits here soon when I'm like stretching out my shoulder. I mean, I had one last year that Gus gives me a really hard time about because it was like the most dead of dead days. Like we literally, like, we were fishing a real clear body of water in Vilas, and like I looked down at one point during the day, I'm like, oh hey, there's like a 45-inch muskie just sitting like 3 feet down in 35 feet of water doing nothing, and like couldn't do anything or whatever. So we're fishing a bunch, and I started getting lazy, and I actually took a cast out and let my bait sink all the way to the bottom. I set the rod on the freaking floor of the boat, take a drink of my beer, Gatorade or whatever at the time. I pick up the rod. I'm like, oh, it's got a snag or something. I'm like, oh wait, the rod's going like this.
Jesus.
I'm like, I got a fish. I had a fish because obviously I didn't hook set or anything, because it probably pinned it to the bottom or something. And then, as I lifted up, it was just sitting there within its mouth. And that was like after doing, hundreds of casts of like counted down exactly the depth I wanted, ripping my little heart out, and then I take the one cast where I set the rod down, take a drink. And of course, then that's when the fish hits after a full like afternoon and, whatever of fishing. And like, of course that happens. So yeah,
right.
I can tell you.
If you're going to fish enough, it's going to happen, and I can't count how many times I see it happen with clients or even myself, where you're just messing around and you're looking down and you get that hit. And it should kind of tell you something, that maybe change up retrieves and whatnot, and maybe give more breaks, or these fish are always changing. Right. Yeah. They're always changing. It's always something new on those.
Do you run some cameras of your own when you're just maybe fun fishing, or sometimes with clients, or? No,
not very much. I have, and it was just like, oh god, beep 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 beep. Oh man.
Yeah, I always ask Greg Thomas. I'm like, hey, why are all your videos on mute?
Right. Yeah, I have a poll out there every once in a while. I put one out. And actually, that's kind of why I got this computer and everything, because I was going to videotape clients, and then for a little extra, I was going to make a video for them. And, well, I haven't gotten that far yet, so I'm still figuring things out. And then cameras pissed me off. And then last year I lost one. I had it on the windshield, and someone hit the cord to it, and it went blink. So
no.
I'm a little behind. Yeah, it was probably out for about 5 minutes.
Hey, the wheels are in motion, though. The thoughts there, that's what counts.
Right. Someday I'll get it. We'll figure it out. The filming part wasn't too bad. It's the editing and everything I would need.
Yeah, it's knowing what to do with the footage afterwards. Yeah,
exactly. And the time to do it all, so.
All right, I want to do a little big fish talk in northern Wisconsin here, because I think sometimes we get the rap of having small fish in our state. And I know that you've put some really nice fish in the boat. So over the years, have you found there's been a specific time of year that you've, I guess, found bigger fish, or I guess certain, patterns or whatever that you've been able to kind of consistently build, where these big fish kind of just show up year after year during a certain time, certain weather day, something like that? Or is it random?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No. A lot of guys like the fall, big fish time, big fall, and granted, you get big fish, but my favorite by far is the end of June, beginning of July, sandgrass bite. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of these big females, they get off spawn and they sit a few weeks. They're not really feeding. They go out, but it always seems to be, and almost every year, I'll catch a handful of really big, some of the biggest fish of the year in that 2-week period. And it's generally right around sandgrass. Yep. Sandgrass, you find that sandgrass, and at end of June, beginning of July, with rubber tubes. I mean, any rubber, I'm not going to say anything in Pacific there, but that's by far my favorite time for big fish. And it's nice out. You're not freezing your butt off.
Right.
Yeah, days are longer. And I mean, do you think with this winter being what it is, lack of snow, do you think that sandgrass is going to be pretty good this year coming up? Or
we're all talking about this, especially for the flowages and everything, because we need water, for flow and everything. But I would imagine that sandgrass is going to be very good, because it's very thin ice. There's not much snow on top of it. In fact, I'm a little worried that all the lakes are going to be really weedy too, because these weeds are going to, things can change quick. We're here in the middle of February right now, but if we get a lot of snow and then April, May, it's cloudy, crappy days, it all equals out in the end.
Sure.
But if it stays the way we're going, I don't know, I imagine we're going to have some pretty, we're going to have some weed problems in a lot of our lakes.
Yeah.
But
Did
it
you
could-
see a good amount of weed growth last year compared to some years?
It seemed like last year I seen a lot of nice weeds, some really good cabbage beds. Do I think
Yeah.
the weeds were out of hand? No.
Okay.
No. Some lakes, unfortunately, a lot of my favorite lakes got weed choked from milfoil, choked out all the
Right.
good weeds out of them. But I did notice, like on the flowages, some of that red tobacco cabbage and green cabbage came back really nicely last year. And I don't know, it's because of the record snows or what it was that kind of choked off some of the milfoil in those flowages. But some of my deeper clear lakes that had some nice cabbage in it, and milfoil's kind of taking its toll.
Do you try and stay away from that a little bit, or are you fishing some milfoil
No,
edges
fish
too?
still use it. It's just tough to fish.
Right,
And that's what
yeah.
you guys will find in that chain in Minnesota that you're fishing for the PMTT this year.
Oh, Tonka?
Tonka, yeah, a lot of milfoil. But it comes
okay.
deep, 20. I think we were finding, where we're getting our fish, the weed line stopped at 20, around 20, 21 feet, but then you had that stragglers come down to about 27.
Oh, wow.
But it grows out pretty deep, yeah.
Jeez.
That's
Yeah,
different fishing than what we've done over here, that's for sure.
Yeah, like on that show, we were doing putting heavy heads just so we could walk it down that break, to get it down there a little deeper. They're hanging right off the edge. Actually, the secondary, we were finding them all on like secondary points that year. Not right off a main point, but there'd be like one teeny little point coming off, and everyone, I think everyone was hitting those points, but they're leaving those teeny little points off, halfway down a bar that had a teeny point coming off it, and that's where all the fish were. Not to change the subject. We've kind of been jumping around all over.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's kind of what we do here. We just pretty much riff about musky fishing, and if people want to pick up a little nugget here and there, that's
right.
That's the goal.
Yeah, we're jumping over. But to get back to your original, definitely last week of June, first week of July, right in that time, give or take days. And obviously you need the right weather too.
Right.
I like the warm weather that time. So
yeah, they probably like the increasing water temps. I definitely see kind of
yep.
that too.
That's the same thing. That's when you're starting to get that bait to come up high. And if you find some of the lakes that the fish are using the sandgrass, obviously you're using the bigger rubber and letting it get down. But the ones where, you get your bait, your Cisco's and everything, they all start coming up high with that sun and the warmer water temps, they'll come up a little bit. And that's when you're using the crankbaits and jerks and whatnot. So, but that's my personal, and every year we get generally our biggest fish in the boat them 2 weeks, give or take.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you like running the grenades out there over the deep water, or
yes,
like sandgrass and open water?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I love them. Love them.
Nice.
Great bait.
So, yeah. We didn't like, we haven't really fully figured it out exactly yet, but we want to incorporate it because it's just such a great tool to get, a bucktail deep. But we had Austin Wiggerman on the podcast recently, and I think he was talking about like yo-yoing them. Did you ever do some yo-yoing or pull paws with them at all, or is it pretty much straight retrieve?
Not really. I mainly a straight retrieve. Every once in a while, maybe twice through the retrieve, just a really fast jerk just to get it to puff out,
Yeah.
Give it a little more action. But definitely do quite a few figure eights with it, because we've had so many fish just follow, and they must follow deep, and then they come up late and just hammered by the boat. But that's
a good note.
Yeah.
Right there.
That's been one of our top baits too.
Are you throwing the smaller size, or do you think you're going to try that monster grenade out at all this year in Wisconsin?
Oh yeah, I'm not afraid. And some of our Wisconsin lakes, they're just big lure lakes. I mean, I'm not going to go through names or anything, but I'll catch more fish on a pounder on those lakes than I will a Meg Dog.
Yeah.
And I think those lakes, and when you think of the Meg, what is it, 14 inches? I think that's what it is, or maybe it might be 16 or 14. That's still, for a big fish, that's small. It's not a big, I mean, that's the size suckers we're using, and we're catching what, 35 inches on them. So, I mean, it's nothing. In fact, the first fish I've ever caught on a pounder was 36 inches. So, I mean,
oh yeah, I caught a like 25-inch musky on a Frankensuic this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. We're probably using too small baits to begin with, but I mean, depends how messed up you want to screw your shoulder up too. You know?
Yeah, we're gonna be talking in 3 years from now, and they're gonna have a quintuple dog, and we're gonna be throwing 14-footers. And
yeah, you will be. I won't.
Yeah, and then we're still gonna hear about the guy who caught a 52-incher on a bass jig. So
right, yeah, and then you got that side of the whole thing too. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh, but I do like throwing big baits. It feels like they, especially in the warmer water periods, they hit it hard, like really hard.
Right. You know? And we usually start pretty big right from the get-go. I am, especially myself personally, I hate dinky little baits. That's why I struggle on some of those lakes with, all we use are these 4 inchers and stuff like that. It's hard for me, you know. It's really hard. I start anywhere from 7 to 10 right from opening day, you know.
Okay.
So I do, you know, 6-inch glide baits and stuff I will throw.
Okay.
But that's about as small as I go.
So you're not afraid to go big on opener then, is what I'm
No,
hearing.
not at all. Not. You just slow it down. Feed it to them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's good to know. Yeah, we've had our openers have been real up and down. I mean, we've had some years where it's been great, and other years where we just can't find.
Right.
We just can't even.
Oh, I've had those too. But generally, I can get fish in the boat, you know, pretty quickly. But I've had those years where it's like, wow, okay, that changed. That's not happening right now. That's not happening right now. And I'll tell you what, the ones I struggle on are those really hot opening weekends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when it's 80, 90 degrees, flat calm. Yeah, if it's like, I remember back in the days, we've had some openers where it actually snowed and it was really cold and we just crushed fish. and then you get those 90-degree days, and I seen the struggle. Those were always my tougher ones. So some guys love them. Oh, it's going to be a warm weekend. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I do remember that
last year.
What's that?
I think we thought that last year and we sucked.
Yeah, it was hot and sunny. Yeah, it was rough for us. And I know there was one year, Max, we started, I think it was a little longer ago. I remember one of the mornings on opener was in like the 30s, and we were out in the chain, and I know we got one, and we moved like a couple of really nice fish on, I think, small baits. I think that's generally what we're using, but I was like, well, dang, that's probably the best.
That's right. A big ass fish came up, and looking at it, you know, I'm just...
Small and how size? What size are you talking?
I think that big fish came on a Booker 500, and then we had it go in the figure 8 on a 22 short SS for like a couple minutes, just staring at it.
It was just hanging out with us. I think it was a small grandma. That fish was just hanging out with us. Like, you could have talked to it. I mean, it was just sitting there hanging around. I mean, it could have like a full-fledged conversation with that. Oh yeah, we unfortunately we never caught that fish that year, and I think we heard some guy catching a really big fish in that same general area, and we were like, that's probably that one we had up multiple times. We just could never get it to go. And that's kind of, I mean, if you had that where, you know, you're guiding and you move a big fish one year, you didn't get it, you go back the next year and it's still there. Have you ever had that?
No.
Okay.
Another big fish using that spot, but I can't say it's the same fish.
Okay. So you'll have like designated, like, all right, this is kind of a big fish spot in my, in your head.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. There's just big fish areas that use, but I won't say one year we had it. I mean, we've caught big fish, but it was in different areas, the same fish. You know, one year we caught it here, and then, you know, quarter mile away we caught the same fish. But I've never seen one year that fish there, and then the next year the same fish. I know I've heard stories, you know, the same day, the same this, the same with like deer hunter. Oh, the same day that big deer came through, and the next, next year on that same day, it came right through again. I haven't seen that personally.
You think, well, that's probably the case in point then, that some people say they move spots once they get caught. I know a lot of people say that, and I feel like there's tracking studies of that where people assume that a fish got caught or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
That always could be the case.
Yeah, I've seen those tracking too, and there was one in the Wisconsin River here that we caught, and the only reason I know it was the same fish because the first time we caught it, it had a stick that was poked out of its belly that it must have ate something on the bottom, ate the stick, and it poked through it, and it was
Whoa.
fine, and it all healed up. And the first time I just took it out, the stick came right out, and it was all healed around. But we ended up catching that fish 3 times, but all 3 times we caught it was probably in about a 500-yard stretch, but never in the same area.
Okay.
But
Wow.
it did stay fairly same area, but not, and it might have been longer, not I think 500 yards. Yeah, it might have been a little longer, but never like right in the same spot.
Yeah.
And that was in a two-year period.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, I know that one. Actually, yeah, one time I did catch, I caught it, and then my dad caught it as well on the same spot 1 month apart, actually. And I think it got a little skinnier, and then also Max and I had the same occasion happen where we caught the same fish like a month or 2 apart, and it moved center like bars, and it got skinnier too.
Really
So
interesting.
I don't know if we're catching the same fish that's just been dying to get at a meal or something, but
the
Every
layup.
time it wants to eat, gain a little weight, you catch it and take it away, and then it doesn't eat for another month.
I know. I
Yeah.
felt
And you catch it
terrible.
again.
I felt terrible when I caught that fish. It was like blind in one eye. I'm like, this thing has just been waiting for an easy meal, and it keeps getting fooled. That poor
Right.
freaking thing.
I know you catch those real ugly, skinny, and it's like, one meal and it might just make it another week, and you end up catching it. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
and,
Whoops.
and
Poor guy.
unfortunately, it's a 10-inch piece of wood,
Right.
with hooks in
Right.
it. Oh man,
Exactly.
yeah. So, are there any places that you got your eye on to get back to? I mean, I know it sounds like you like Leech, but is there any other destinational trips you got on the radar here in the next few years? I know you're probably pretty busy with guiding and working and family and
Right.
whatnot, but
Yeah, not really. I mean, Leech, and whatever, we do with Keys, because we always hear something, he digs up something, or I find something, I'm gonna say, it might be worth checking out, and that's about it. Yeah, nothing super to run out to right now.
You don't take an annual trip to Canada or anything?
No, we used to go to the Canada all the time, Winnipeg River. But since COVID and all that, we kind of just been doing the Minnesota thing. So yeah, but that was always fun, and then I guess that might be something we might do too as a family, go up there and do something with some friends too. But I haven't been up there since before COVID.
do you find that your fishing style changes quite a bit when you hop across the border to Minnesota, or are you doing a lot of similar things you do in
Similar, because Winnipeg River it's a deep river system.
Okay.
And I always went in August, so it was a great rubber bite, and we just fished deep points, deep rocks, and
Yeah.
now talking about it, I kind of miss it because you get those evenings where your knees are shaking because it's like every couple casts something happens, and but yeah, it was definitely the same thing. It was just big rubber on deep rock. So
similar to Minnesota too. Are you doing a lot of the same things over there when you go there, or is it different game plan?
It's kind of all seasonal, it's all seasonal.
Right.
Like when we fished a chain for that tournament, that was all really deep. But now, like the ski show that's on this last weekend and this next weekend, that was all in less than, I guess some of the fish came out in about 8 feet of water, but a lot of them were in 4 or 5 feet of water.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's
catching
nuts.
a fish that big out of that shallow water would just be kind of nuts.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Minnesota's a whole nother animal, I love it over there. I love those fish. They're insane, but it can be tough.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks you could just go over there and it's a gimme, but it's not.
No, we saw it at Vermilion. It took us, we were lucky to squeak out one really nice fish and hooked and lost another really big one. But I mean, wasn't for, we spent a lot of time throwing lures on vermilion.
Right.
We didn't pre-fish like we normally do for tournaments because we were just like, yeah, we're at freaking vermilion. Like, let's just go try to catch a giant, and next thing you know, 3 days later, we hadn't had a fish with hooks in it yet. We're like, oh, this is quite a challenge, actually.
Right. Well, that's a whole nother beast over there too. That vermilion out of all the Minnesota lakes kind of has my number, just like the Chip does in Wisconsin here. Beautiful body of water, loaded with big fish, but same thing. A few times I've been there, man, it was a struggle bus. Seen big fish, but just to get them go, to get them to bite, everything has to line up just perfect.
That's what I felt like too. It felt so situational for those big girls to actually eat. I mean, we got our first taste of it pre-fishing. This upper 40s, little 50s came flying in out of weeds and throwing a big ass bucktail, and like that got the heart going like crazy. But it's it's like, well, when is that fish gonna actually eat? It's like
right.
we're just sitting there at 10 a.m. High skies, and came up and said, hey, but to actually get it to open up its mouth, it just seemed like it would have been impossible. I mean, it hung around, but they just kind of turn around and then they just paddle off, and you're just like, how freaking big was that thing?
Like they say, the Minnesota shuffle comes flying right up to it and follows, and whoop, gone. Even on that shoot, even on that shoot with Keys, man, I had one. It was low 50s, and that thing Mach 5 right to my double dog, and I swear to God, it was about 2 to 3 inches away from it, and just came to a dead stop. Oh my God. And then it was gone. It was actually right on the shoulder, and it was actually amazing that they can stop that quick, because the way he was coming, if I was a gambler, man, that thing was gone. It was going to just inhale my thing, and it just came and stopped.
You should
Minnesota shuffle.
Minnesota shuffle. Yeah, I know there was just a post recently on, I don't know what it was on, but I think Greg posted it. This guy has been doing some underwater filming at Geneva, and I checked out the website today, and he's got like a whole video logs of underwater camera work. And it was crazy to see these fish interact with like trolling baits, and how they literally would fly up from the deep, and they'd get there and nose it, and they would just put on the brakes.
Oh yeah.
And turn around. They would like open their mouth and like taste the water around it, and then they would just dip out. It's then like, I was like, how do we catch these things sometimes?
It's insane, isn't it? I mean, even with your guys' live scope, do you ever notice that on live watching your baits? Do you use it when you're trolling?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and you see them doing the same thing, come flying right up, and they're swimming around it, and all of a sudden, boop, they're gone. It's like, what?
Yeah. We've got to kind of like, we've got a few going up to the rod and giving it a big jolt, and even taking it out of the rod holder and giving it a big jolt. And we've seen them turn off immediately too on that.
Mm-hmm. I've caught them with the live scope, checking the baits out. It seems like the further it is, it's not as bad. But I've seen a lot of them come flying right up, and I've had them already fly right up to the bait. They're sitting there following it for 2 minutes. All of a sudden, boom, they're gone, and then the next rod goes. One of the other rods is like, wow.
Yeah.
But I remember 5 years ago, to kind of go back on live scope, or no, this is probably even longer. Probably right when the first one came out, and Thomas had it right away. I mean, he was like one of the first guys I knew that had it. And he used to tell me, man, you would never imagine how many fish follow your baits, and about 20 feet out, they just turn right off. I'm like, are you shitting me? He goes, every time I go out, I have at least 20 follows that turn off 20 feet out. And that was like the first year they came out. I remember him telling me that. So
we saw it, like the most clear I think we saw it this year was we were fishing a really deep clear system in the fall. And there was like this very small isolated hump close to some really deep water, and like there was, I don't know, Gus and Brian, if you guys remember kind of what I'm talking about, but there was just fish loaded on this thing for whatever reason. Like it was just a kind of a gravel hump, and we were throwing like super heavy dying dogs, and it was a slow bite. So we would like watch it on live scope, we'd count it down, and he'd give it a big rip, let it sit, give it a big rip, let it sit, and these fish would just literally, you'd watch them fire up when you'd rip it, and then it would sit, and fish would sit there behind it. You'd fire it up, it would come to it again, and then it would stop. You'd do it again, and then they would turn off. And it was just like cast after cast. Like you just we're like, all right, these guys are not interested in actually eating. But it was
Frustrating.
crazy to see that. You would never know if you didn't have it. You'd be like, oh, this spot
Exactly.
sucks. There's no fish here. Couldn't see them on side or anything. Be like, all right, let's move on. But then, you sit there and you waste 2-3 hours because you're like, all right, eventually they might go, but they don't.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with that, everyone's got it or whatever. And I don't run it all the time, but when I do, I mean, there's a lot of frustration with it because you see a lot of that stuff, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
Jesus. And I'm sure it's been happening the whole time, you just, and just stories where it's like there's no fish here. And then you put that down and you just see them out there. It's like, Jesus Christ, look at a fish out here. But we can't even get anything to go.
Yeah, and it's tough sometimes seeing like that many fish. It's like, do you move lakes even if they're not eating? But it's like, well, we just marked a bunch. Like, I've had that struggle there. We're deciding to move lakes or not. It's like we see them, they're not eating, but then again, we're on fish and they're everywhere. So it's like, do we leave fish to find fish? I don't know. It's tough.
Well, that's rule number one: never leave fish to find fish. But
yeah,
there's a time of day where you go, "Oh man, we've been here a long time. It's bit me in the butt, and it's paid off." So yeah, that's a tough call.
Mm-hmm.
For you, like when you're guiding up in the North Woods, are there days where you're hitting super shallow stained water and then you'll jump over to a big deep clear lake on the same day? I mean, you do. Okay, so you really just kind of mix it up. And
generally, I'll ask the client, what they want to fish, if they want action or if they want to go for a big fish. And generally, if we go for a big fish and it is a tougher day, 90% of them will always say, let's go to that small lake now. We're okay, let's go. And then we'll pick up and go to that lake and do okay. But like I said, when we first started this, I mean, I've had days this year where it didn't matter where you were. It was hard to even get a follow. It was tough.
Yeah.
There was some of those tough days. We had those weird weather days, man. And they just, when they were off, I always tell them, it doesn't matter how much money you have. You can have every dollar in the world. You ain't buying a musky today, man. It just ain't happening.
Yeah.
At least in my boat, it ain't, because it's just not going to happen.
I definitely had those too. And there was like, I don't know. There's a few, I feel like maybe one of them snuck up on me, but I think a few of those, I was just looking at the weather being like, oh boy, this is the weird, this is probably going to be a weird day. And some of them surprised me though,
for sure. No doubt about it. About it.
Because we've had some cold fronts that suck and then some cold fronts that just lights them up.
Right. It was almost like the opposite of the days. Some of the days you thought it was going to be bad were really good. And then the days that were picture perfect were pure crap,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we had that one day this last summer where we're like, oh, let's sleep in. I don't think it's going to be that great tomorrow in the morning anyways, like whatever. And then we get out there and it was like our third cast. We had a big fish up, caught one, hooked and lost one. And it was like, you're looking around and it's like light variable wind, high skies. Like what about today decided for these fish is, come in shallow and say, yeah, we're going to eat every single bucktail that we see today for whatever reason, it's like, you just, there's no handbook for this stuff, and it's kind of, you just take whatever thing you can, you take little nuggets here and there and try to put the pieces together, but you just never really fully know, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just time on the water, man. That's, there was that book and that's everything you need to know is time on the water. You're going to see everything you need. You're going to figure it all out with time on the water. And you're going to figure out that as much as you're still learning every time I go out, I'm learning new things. But like those tough days, I just feel sorry for my clients because I'm not the one that, okay, yeah, it sinks, we're going in now. It's like, no, we're staying out. We're staying out. We're staying out. We're staying out till we get one. And it super long days, but it is what it is.
Right. Yeah, I like doing that too when it's tough. I want to just stick it out all the time.
It's harder for me to go in when it's tough. It's like, no, we're not going out. Let's try this lake, or we got to go here. We got to try this. And I can imagine what they're thinking, because there's been times when I've been with friends, we're fishing. I'm like, man, I'm ready to go in. Well, let's just try this spot and this spot, and then we'll go ahead. And I was like, oh God. So I don't know what they're thinking of me when I'm keeping them out there. And if the guy says, no, I'm totally done, I want to go, then we'll go in. But if they don't say anything, man, we're going to be kicking it out for a while.
Wow, it's kind of the blessing and curse of like guiding where you guys do, because it's like, well, if they're not going on this lake, maybe they're going on this lake, and then, well, if they're not going there, maybe they're going, 6 minutes down the road. Hey, just give me another 2 hours, and it's just
right.
it's that forever.
And that's the joys from up here. We have so many lakes so close. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump to a river, a flowage, a lake, a big, deep, clear water lake, a dark water lake. I mean, we're lucky to have it all. We might not have the size of some of these other states, but the variety and the beauty. I mean, they got big fish in Minnesota, but we got beauty and a lot of fish and a lot of choices.
Yeah.
Any particular fish that stuck out to you over the years that you've either seen or caught? I always kind of ask this question to guys that have been fishing in the Northwoods for a while, because it seems like, there's always at least one or two that they stumble across that maybe makes your eyes pop a little bit bigger, that you're not, I don't know.
Keeps you up at night.
Keeps you up at night or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. I'm trying to think of one in particular. I can't. No, I actually, at this moment right now, I'm doing a brain fart and I can't think of any good story with one. I'm sure as soon as we get off, I'm like, damn it, why didn't I bring that guy up there? But
that's all. I mean, all good. We really have only had. I mean, what would you guys say? We've had maybe 1 or 2 encounters with fish that were substantially bigger than anything we've caught up north.
Yeah, I'd say so. Few and far between. I mean, usually it's 4-footer here and there, but there's a few. Yeah, at least I think 2
that
I
we've
can think of.
seen. One that only Bryan saw, so who knows how.
And Jack,
60-incher.
Yes.
Apparently, its tail was on this side of the boat, and the head was over by the motor over there.
Oh yeah, we heard about it for months. I mean, I think this fish is actually rivaling the one that's hanging in the Hayward bars from what Bryan made it sound like. But
as we get more distant from the time it actually happened, it gets bigger and bigger.
Was that? Oh, you did have whiskey in the boat that day, right?
Yeah, a lot since, so I can't really remember it perfectly. But
yeah, we've had some really big fish going and stuff, but I mean, no real good stories to say about them.
I do remember there was one shoot you did with Keys. You guys were in northern Wisconsin, and you guys had some really big fish going. I think you caught an upper 40s, and then I think you hooked and lost or had one follow that you could see on camera. And I think you guys were like, that was 50 plus. I remember.
Oh yeah, I know it. Yep.
I don't know if you
that
remember.
was like 5, 6.
It was a while. Yeah, it was a while. You guys had some big fish.
Yeah, that was good. That shoot, actually, I wasn't really fishing with them at the time, and we were just talking all the time, and I'm like, I'm on fire. It's fire here, man. So if you need a show, let's do it now, because he always wanted to do a show or something. So he came up, and right when he came up, a cold front came. Oh. So we were on a crazy topwater bite before he came up there, and then he came up and it was a cold front. So they were still a little bit on the topwater bite, but yeah, that was that fish he missed on that. It was like I think it was a squirrely hellhound or something at the time.
Some glide bait.
Yeah, and we were saying that fish must have been one-eyed, because it just came up. You could see it just perfect and just missed the glide bait, just like inches away from it. And it was a monster. I mean, it was easily 50s all day. But yeah, I do remember that one. In fact, every time I'm out there, I remember that fish right there. So yeah, I guess that was a good story.
Yeah,
that was a good one. Yeah, that was 7, 8 years ago actually already. That was we should have had a lot of fish that shoot.
Yeah, just kind of one of those trips where you had them. I think our buddy Clayton has summed it up well. He's like, if you're on fish, you're going to lose fish, and that's just the harsh reality of it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
If you're
nothing's perfect, and it's never gonna, all go your way. Like that shoot, he was losing them all one after another, and I was getting them, and then towards the end, and I started losing all the fish, and then he caught a couple. But in the end, I think we got one decent fish. We lost 2 real big ones, and probably lost like 20 fish or something that hit our topwaters and baits. And, yeah, I think it was that cold front, so they were just nipping. They were popping the topwaters, they're nipping at the baits, and
Would you say that Keys has some of the best post musky catch celebrations of anybody that you've ever been in the boat with?
By far. Because it doesn't matter what size the fish is, he's happy if it's a 30-incher.
Yeah.
Our absolute favorite is when he catches one and then gives a fist pump and stares down the camera. Like, let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah. In slow motion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they
No, but it's
replayed
awesome,
that. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that one that it just replayed recently of his giant Lake St. Clair one where he got on his knees and just put both hands up like yes, yes. That was some crazy good emotion right there. That was fun to see.
For sure. That's what I like about him, because he's just so excited. Every fish is a monster, and he's so excited, and he's been doing it for a while, and he's just as excited for a 30-incher as, obviously a little more when they're big like that. It's a little more exciting, but he just gets excited with any fish that comes in the boat, which makes it fun.
Oh yeah.
Because once you get to that point where it's like, oh, that's only this and that, and I'll get to them points sometime, but when I fish with him, then I realize, you just make it fun no matter what the size of the fish is. It's still musky. They smell the same. And sometimes those days, those small ones are just as hard to catch as a big one.
Oh yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, you got to trick them all. They don't jump in the boat. So
no. Well, I had one jump in a boat once, but
do tell.
Really?
Yeah. I was just pulling the bait out of the water and it came flying up. It was like about a 32, 33. Missed the bait, but it flew right and landed right in the boat.
Oh my god! So does that count
when you
as a
said that,
catch?
I'd say, actually, I don't think so.
Could you imagine that happening in a tournament, like in a
Right.
like a tournament, and all of a sudden, like, I don't even know what you do. Like, I think we caught it.
Depends how honest you are, I guess.
Yeah.
Because you really didn't hook it, so I don't think it would be legal.
Yeah,
but it is in your
trapping.
boat. But it
Makes
is in your
sense.
boat.
I don't know.
Wow, that's a good question to ask. I don't know. Who do you ask on that one?
Bring it up in Kentucky at the rules meeting. Get to the bottom of it.
Yeah,
I would say no, it's not legal. Would be my guess, but it's
I would
not a
assume
catch.
so too.
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard because there's like some gray area, like we haven't had this happen, luckily, but like, what if you catch one, you bring it to the, well, you don't catch it, you bring it to the boat, and as you go to net it, the bait pops, and if it swims like 2 or 3 feet and all of a sudden it turns back and, you net it or whatever, like, is that, a legal catch? That, Gus, you're kind of squinting your eyes, but.
Oh,
If I was
I
a
thought you were
judge, I
gonna
would
say
say, yeah,
something.
that's a legal catch.
Yeah, I would probably
Definitely.
say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure we were going with that. I think that would be a catch too. I thought you were gonna say like you see it hooked in the mouth and then it unhooks and then gets hooked in the back. What happens there?
Yeah.
I think that's still a legal catch too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so too.
If I was a judge, I'd say yes.
Well, I remember, I think that was Indiana and Spence. Remember on the show they had that one that was hooked in the back, and that was counted.
Okay.
And they just said the fish hit and it came off, and then it got hooked in the back. Because some guys were, oh, look at it, it's hooked in the back. It was snagged, so it shouldn't have counted. But then the PMTT counted it because he said it was hooked, and then hook came out and got hooked in the back, and can't control that. It's still a catch.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I had one this year that ate bucktail right at the top of the water. You could see it eat it in the mouth, and then when we netted it, the bait was actually hooked in its tail. I don't know what happened.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I have no idea how it happened. All of a sudden, I was like, it wasn't a big fish, and I'm like fighting it around the boat. It was just going crazy. He was doing cartwheels and whatever, and I felt like tension kind of leave. I thought I had lost a fish, but it was going so nuts I couldn't really tell. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, this fish is like fighting substantially harder now. And once it showed itself, like it was facing away from the boat, and I saw the bucktail was hooked by the tail, and I was like, how in the hell did that happen?
Yeah, it's nuts.
You
never know. Every time you go out musky fishing, it's always something new, man. It is crazy.
Yeah, no, the amount of like weird stuff that happens over time just feels like you can't really make some of the stuff up that I feel like just randomly happens.
Right. It's a crazy fish. I mean, it just, the way it hits, the way it reacts to everything, it's different.
Yeah.
And then the way they fight, and when you hook them, the crazy stuff that can happen afterwards, it's just nuts.
Yeah.
I guess that's why we're all here, you know?
Yeah, we're all just as nuts as the other. Yeah.
It's crazy how I can take some people out, and the first time they'll catch a couple fish, next thing you know, they're buying a boat, lures, rods, they're just gone, you know? And then other people, like my dad, I take him out, he's caught so many nice fish with me, but he'd rather just go trout fishing and bluegill fishing. He could care less if he would ever musky fish again. So it takes that special someone or something. I don't know what it is, but when you're hooked, man, I feel sorry for you. That's about all I can say.
Sorry for the checkbook. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it takes a dent into your net worth every time somebody
Right.
falls victim to the sport of musky fishing. That's for damn sure. And yeah, we've talked to a lot of people with this podcast, like guys that are starting out, you know, and it's just like, well, have fun in 3-4 years from now when it's all you can think about.
Yep. The cool thing is, though, we're all on even playing grounds, you know. It's all public lakes. We're all fishing public lakes. Like, you know, and Keys and I talked about this too, you know, like deer hunting. All these big deer everyone gets, but they're pretty much deer farmers. You know, they got their private land. They can grow them to whatever they want. But when it comes to musky fishing, we're all on public water. We're all in the same boat. It's all comes up to your knowledge. You know, we can't just grow our fish on my own little private lake and say, oh, look at, you know, this 55-incher, but no one else can fish it. I mean, granted, there are private lakes, don't get me wrong. And there are some big fish on private lakes, but 99% of them aren't.
Right.
Yeah. And anyone that goes out there on any given day can, you know, put a trophy in the net, which makes it fun. I mean, you know, you just never know what you're going to get when you're out there. And you've heard stories like you talked about, you know, guys musky eating bass baits and stuff like that. I mean, we had a guy send in a picture to us a few months ago that was bass fishing, and he caught a 57-inch muskie on, I think it was either Georgian Bay or something like that. And, you know, it ate the bass and he caught it, and now he's a big muskie fisherman. So,
now he's hooked. Now he's done.
Yep, he's done.
Poor guy.
So I heard you talk about earlier, I think we briefly touched on it when I asked about the quad dog. You talked about night fishing, and that's something that we barely tried to get into last year. Was curious on how much you utilize it. Is it because I've heard from some people where they're out in the water to sunset, and say it's a day where like you get them to move. Maybe you might get one to eat that day, but you're just moving fish. Are you gonna like stick into the night a little bit, like an hour or two, or even later?
For sure, for sure. If the clients are okay with it, or if I'm okay with the clients to do it, because I get some clients that no way am I staying out there after dark with them, because it's already dangerous during the day. You know, I'm ducking and everything, so that would not happen. But for sure, for sure.
Okay.
And then I do book some. You know, if people want to, they want to fish into the dark, and I generally, if I've already fished with them a few years already, we'll do it too. So.
Sure. And say even if it's somebody that you know, is newer to night fishing, or maybe it's somebody that you're taking out that you've night fished with them plenty of times. What are some things that you're doing? Do you got like any glow tape on trolling motors? Do you got glow beads on leaders? Do you got like knots, like a slip bobber knot in the line or something to kind of help with figure eights? You know, that's what I'm always curious about, what people do, because I know some people use like red lights or something all the time, or green, or
some do. I don't use any lights, but I do have the tape on my trolling motor pedal. I do have it on my trolling motor. Yeah. Okay. I have it actually around my net. I have a couple of them around my net so I can see that edge, and I do use beads.
Okay.
But the biggest thing is just slow down. That's the biggest night fishing tip I can give everyone, is just slow down. Slow it down. And I'm not big on ripping things. You know, I'm not ripping them like I am during the day. It's slow reel, a pull, a pause, you know, on certain baits, or just a steady retrieve, but slow down. And that goes with boat control too. Slow that boat control way down. Don't go flying through areas like you would normally do during the day.
Like Gus was saying, if you have a day where you're getting a lot of fish to move or you're seeing them on side imaging and they're not budging, and then you'll fish into the dark, are you staying just for a couple hours, getting a couple fish? Have you ever extended it deep into the night if you have like a moon phase coming up? Have you noticed them active at 2 a.m.?
Yeah, a lot of times you'll get it like right at dusk, and then it'll be an hour or so afterwards, and then it might be, if you have a moon phase, or 2, 3, 4 hours afterwards. But generally, we haven't been staying out more past midnight. The older I get, and just, especially when you have another day, the next day, you're not staying out late. It
right.
runs you right down.
Have you noticed any difference between like new moon and full moon for night fishing? Like, do you prefer one over the other?
I prefer the new moon for night fishing. I like it dark, but I've done very well on the moon out too, with the moon out. So, but if it's my choice, I like pure darkness.
Okay. Yeah, we tried that on new moon last year in when was it? Mid-July. And that was a different experience. I mean, if you're on a lake with not many houses on it, your bearings for where you are that's tough. To like all of a sudden it might be dead flat calm, and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, I'm tipping over a little bit. Gotta keep it.
Right. Fog comes out and you can't see the shoreline at all. So you're 50 feet from it.
Yeah.
Right. Just the whole casting. And like when I do have customers, I mean, we'll fish a lot of mid-lake humps and stuff because it's just a little easier to deal with. When you got those steep shorelines that are close to shore, man, that is hard to cast in the pitch black like that because you have no control. You have no clue where that bait's landing.
Yeah.
It's just tough. I mean, there's no getting around it.
Right. And are you big on multiple figure eights after dark too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the big one.
For sure. Oh yeah, for sure. Like the guy in the front can normally see his figure eight because of the boat lights up in the front. The red and green. You can generally see a fish, and I'll tell everyone, when you come way up in front of the boat like that, and you'll see a fish down there. Every once in a while, you'll even bump them. Sometimes you'll bump that fish. But
whoa, yeah. Do you run your? It would be spooky. Do you run your boat lights bright how they are? Because I've wrapped them in like a white t-shirt to dull them a little bit, just so that people don't have their eyes, I don't know.
Yeah, like on my trolling motor and pedal and stuff, I put electrical tape on, and then my backlight, I'll put electrical tape just on the inside, so it's not shining like super bright on us. But like a bolt coming from the outside, you can still see the lights. But anything that's shining in, I'll put black electrical tape just on the inside.
I gotta try that. I've normally dampened them with like a t-shirt or something like that, but obviously I don't want to get run over out there because many of the lakes around us, you can go fast at night. There's no hours on some of the lakes.
And sometimes you never know what's out there flying around either. And I suppose even at that time, it doesn't even matter if you have lights on or not. But yeah, I know a lot of guys, you see them out there. I'll be going across sometimes and it's pitch black. Also, boom, lights come on. They're fishing out there with no lights on. And I don't know. It's just not worth it, especially when you're guiding, taking other people's lives. So we have the lights on. I just put the black electrical tape on the inside so it's not like blinding you. And then because those little red and green lights on your trolling motor are burning all hell at night. Everything just pierces your eyes at night. So
yeah.
Have you ever gotten chased off the water by angry beavers before? Pitch black?
No. Mosquitoes.
Yeah. I was gonna say, what's your night fishing bug control?
I'm not a bug spray man, so I just kind of put up with it. I do if every once in a while I'll buy like the wipes and wipe whatever point I have, but I'll put like rain gear on and whatnot. Just try to cover up the best I can. But I don't like spraying down.
Yeah. Mosquitoes are afraid to bite you anyways, so
yeah, I wish that was true, man. I must taste delicious because they get me.
Yeah, I only brought up the beavers thing because it wasn't really the thing that chased us off the water, but it was kind of like the last the straw that broke the camel's back, if you
Spooky
will.
fog.
We were fishing a back bay, and it was real foggy and kind of like, if you were setting the scene for like a musky horror movie, like it would probably be like the opening scene. And all of a sudden, like, we're hearing our baits hit the water, but like every once in a while you'd hear this like koosh, koosh up on shore. We're like, what the hell is going on? We were on a lake with minimal houses, and yeah, there's a bunch of like beavers slapping their tails at us to get the hell out of there. We got
Oh my God.
like, what the hell's going on? It was weird.
That's funny that you said Musky Horror Show. I'm just looking it up right now. Did you guys ever see that Musky Horror Show? There was actually a movie.
I think I heard about it once. Is it like Blood something, or what's it called?
Yes, Blood Hook. There it is. Okay, that's what I'm looking up. Blood Hook.
Oh, jeez. Any good? You recommend?
No, it's pretty bad, but it's funny because it is. I think it takes place in like Hayward or something. And the guy's a musky fisherman, and he hooks people and basically kills them with musky baits.
High budget film.
Yeah. Blood Hook. Yeah. Oh yeah. It probably costed $50 at the time.
Blood Hook.
Blood Hook. Yeah. I think it's on like YouTube. I just watched it like last year because I heard of it and I'd seen it. I'm like, oh my God. But that's when you said Musky Horror Show. I was like, oh, God, what was that name of that show? So I just Googled it real quick.
Now we got something to watch this weekend for our little ice fishing tournament.
Right. Yeah. Grab some beers and watch Blood Hook.
Sounds like a great night.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a little powwow going up this weekend. We got a bunch of buddies that we do a competition, and Gus and Bryan are on a team with another guy. And then I got my two buddies that I bring up. We go 3-on-3 and do a little friendly, well, not so friendly, I would actually say, competition. It gets pretty heated.
Same water?
Yeah, same water, same location.
Nice. Same spot.
Same spot.
You're all right in the same area.
Yeah, it literally is not skill dependent. It's like who gets lucky, and
it's just
obviously
flags.
It's 18
scattered.
Flags, and obviously you can miss fish, and that makes a big difference sometimes because every year it's been pretty close. Within maybe a fish or two, and we just only tip up fish. That's all that counts.
Okay.
And
can you steal flags, like knock the guy over and take his flag?
No, we had to rule that out pretty quick.
We had a situation one year where we had a free for all on flags, and luckily there was a lot of snow on the ice that year because it just pretty much turned into a full football game before anyone would get to a tip up. That
one should have been filmed. That would have been good. That would have been worth the price of admission right there.
Oh, it's great. And there's some big boys too. I mean, one of the guys played tight end in college, and there's it's definitely people not holding back to get to that tip up. It got pretty ruthless. So yeah, we had to start designating flags and whatever. But like if one hole starts getting hot, there's no rules that it says you can't,
drill right next to it.
Drill right next to it and put one of your tip ups there. So there's a little gamesmanship that goes on that we, that is typically pretty funny.
Nice. So, you're gonna put winner on online on social media who won it with the winning fish.
I think we should this year. Yeah, we do total inches. And typically we'll do like a hot dog hole that's bonus points, and
we got big fish pot too.
Big fish pot. Musky is it's just northern and walleye, and
and bass. So, bass just the main three game fish.
Yeah, well, you have to now that you're talking about it on the podcast. You're gonna have to show what happened.
Oh yeah.
Because otherwise everyone's going to be like, well, who won? What happened?
That's true. Maybe do some Keys style interviews through the middle. Hey Bryan, Bryan, what happened there? What happened? You just missed your third fish of the morning. What happened, Bryan?
After 10 beers.
Yeah. That's pretty spot on.
Yeah.
It'd be a good time.
Nice. That sounds fun. I'm not an ice fisherman, but that's something that would, trip my trigger. That sounds a good time.
That's like our one big weekend to go do it because, we're not I mean, Gus is getting into it a little bit now, living up there, but we're not long for the ice fishing game. It's just, you know.
Yeah, I used to, and just past 10 years or so, I just hasn't tripped my trigger.
Yeah, I'm kind of there too. Even being up here with all these lakes and access to me, I'm not ice fishing much. I mean, I think I'm just gonna go out to check out one of the lakes that we're fishing this week. That's it. I think I just fished once last week. Yeah.
Trying to get the jump on you guys. Is it over here?
That's
Is it
my
by
teammate.
you?
What's that?
Are you guys having it by you?
Yeah, it's up here in
Max, aren't you in
Vilas.
Minnesota?
Yeah, I'm in Minnesota, so I got a buddy from Milwaukee coming up and another buddy from Appleton coming up. And that's my squad. One of them, you know, like really doesn't fish at all besides this weekend. And the other one is a little bit more experienced. So, you know, we got our team's a little bit of a makeshift squad, but you know, we got high morale, good vibes on our squad. And then Bryan and Gus obviously, you know what they're doing, and our buddy Jack fishes quite a bit too. So they're a little bit more seasoned, but you know, for whatever reason, the old guys keep taking them down. So we'll see if that
I thought it was only 1 year. I think you just got us 1 year and talking all hot shit here.
The old guys.
Yeah.
Hey Bryan, are you from northern Wisconsin? Where are you from?
Appleton, Green Bay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He lives in Kakana now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The young guy.
Beautiful metropolitan.
Yeah.
Oh, good stuff. All right. Well, we could probably put a bow on this one here tonight. Unless you guys got anything else, this has been awesome. I mean, Bryan, we've been watching you on Keys Outdoors for a long time, and since you started, so
Awesome. Appreciate
getting a
it.
chance to
you guys watch it on KO
Yeah.
TV?
I do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Season's been
yeah.
great.
Nice.
You know, it's every year he puts out great content, and hope he continues to do it for as long as he is able to. Cause
he's just a great storyteller, you know, and artist. And he'll admit he's not the greatest fisherman. Tons of people better, but he's just a great storyteller, you know.
Yeah.
That's his job, you know.
Right. Yeah. Some of those shots are ridiculous. I mean, the time like that I would imagine goes into some of those shoots has just got to be crazy. Like you're talking about, you know, you catch a fish, you want to keep fishing. Like even just the morning routine, filming that stuff, like that's just a lot that goes into those episodes. It's crazy.
Well, just his camera setup is, 20 minutes just setting up everything just to get the day going. You know, I get in the boat and I'm like, oh, I just want to go and start casting instantly. And we got to wait. There's rule number one, not one cast until the cameras are all running and everything's going, and I'm just ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
I go just whoop and start casting. So
does he ever have you roll some? Does he ever have you roll some B-roll at all? Do you?
Oh yeah. We all take turns. Yeah, we all take turns. You learn after a while. I'll see something, I'll grab the camera and I'll just film, or I'll put it on him, or I see something, I see some eagles or something, I'll film it.
Cool.
So
awesome.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, the more B-roll, you don't have to use it all, but the more you have, the easier it is. And then we have those times where we've had a good shoot and we're fishing so hard we have no B-roll. Those are really bad, because now we got to do tons of B-roll
after the fact.
Yeah, and his daughter does a lot of the editing, and she'll just bitch at him. It's like, it's all fish catches here. There's not very much B-roll. And every time we go, and he's like, we got to make sure we do B-roll. We got to make sure we do B-roll, because we're always just out there, till we get the fish, because you can't have a show without fish, obviously. He actually did one show without any fish catches, but that's the main goal, obviously, the fishing show.
Right.
That's what we've struggled with. I mean, we'll be so set on doing a filming weekend or whatever, and then next thing you know, we get into a pile of fish maybe later on, and we don't have the B-roll, or we didn't set up any of the storyline. So next thing you know, all we have is catches. Or then the opposite, we'll do all this filming in the car and getting ready and all this stuff, and then we have blank on the day.
Right.
Now
and we just scratch everything.
Yep, you need a good mixture of both,
Yeah.
So, and he points it out. He's been doing it so long, so he's a master at it. So, but we have filled on either side, either we didn't catch nothing, the same thing, and we had some B-roll, or we had a lot of fish catches and we needed help on some B-roll. So,
yeah, makes sense. We're gonna kind of get into it this year and just kind of slowly put it all together, because like Max said, yeah, we've struggled with both ends of it: fish catching, no B-roll, B-roll, no fish catches. So it's all just a learning curve for us as well. And yeah, like you said, Keys is a master. We always love watching his show, and yeah, big time.
Yeah, he's a good storyteller. But you look at like we were talking the hunting public and stuff. I mean, they don't shoot deer every time, but they tell a good story. They see the behind the scenes in the cars and all that. And people really enjoy that stuff. And me and Keys talk about that all the time. We got to get more. Because a few times we had flat tires, and the whole day was just a fiasco, and we're done. And we're like, why don't we film any of this and tell the story of this trip and what we just been through? And we forgot all of it, but. It's stuff like that.
Well,
waking up in the morning.
I love that stuff because it's super relatable to what we go through. I mean, we've like I that's the reason why I think I like Keys more than just the fish catching part. It's the actual whole
the reality
of the episode of it and everything that kind of goes into that. Call it 43 seconds of bliss when you actually catch one. There's hours of stuff that lead up to that, and we've had weekends like that too. Like when we try to do a trip to Hayward and Bryan decides to smoke a deer on the way there, and the motor doesn't work.
And they're done that same place.
And like we're riding with the tow truck guy at 5:15 in the morning, trying to get him
great
footage.
And that's the stuff you got to film and talk about, because that's just part of life when we're doing what we're doing,
Right.
Yeah.
People love that stuff, and we just keep kicking ourselves all the time when we do go through that, and we're so, oh crap, we gotta do this and that, and then we're like, why don't we film any of this and talk about it?
Yeah,
but he does catch a lot of it.
Yeah,
it's awesome. So, well, we can't thank you enough, like I said, for coming on. This has been super cool for us, and we just really appreciate the time. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. And nice meeting you, Gus, this weekend. So looking forward to opener.
Yeah, really nice meeting you this weekend. And yeah, thanks for taking the time. And we got to get you back on, because I think we could have for sure gone a lot longer. And I think we'll put a pin in it for sure, and we'll come back. And
anytime, man.
Chat with you.
Do something middle of the end of the season, see how things are going or whatever. Whenever you guys want, man. All good.
That's
awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks guys. Appreciate it.
Before wait. Before you sign off, Bryan, you want to just quick give some information of how people can contact you to book a guide trip?
Yeah, just go to SchaefferOutdoors.com. I have a website, and you can go to Bryan Schaeffer on Facebook. Contact me on Messenger there. That's about it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Most of my stuff I go through the website. So like I said, I told everyone I'm going to do a little better on social media this year. So hopefully some fishing reports or something, but I don't know. We'll see.
Awesome.
I always say that. The season comes, I'm so busy. I'm like, I'm not.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, it is tough, but well, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on here, and pleasure to meet you in person finally, at the show. Had a great time, and we'll catch up with you and stay in touch. So thank you so much for coming on.
For sure. I hope you guys have a good year, man. We'll keep in touch.
All right, guys. Cannot thank Bryan Schaeffer enough for coming on the podcast and sharing his time with us here, chatting about muskies. Man, we just had a blast. We just we touched on a good amount of fronts there. Traveling, all the stuff in northern Wisconsin, night fishing, shooting with Keys, tournaments. I don't know, man. Yeah, we covered a lot, and I definitely look forward to getting back in touch with him on maybe a recap of his season, or just, chatting about, whatever's on our minds the next time. So with that being said, maybe quick touch on our favorite parts of the pod or stuff we learned about. Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I'll lead us off here. One thing that kind of hit home was when he was talking about his favorite time of the year to target some big mamas. And when he was talking about that late June, early July sandgrass bite, I was I was immediately starting to think about some of the bigger fish we've had, in the middle of summer come up. On lakes that we don't fish very often, but we've seen some giants in the sandgrass and deeper water and clear water. And they probably have fallen around that same time window. So I definitely would like to, put some more emphasis on it, especially when it's, those hot sunny days in the summer and these fish are either lethargic in the weeds or not in the weeds, get out to some deeper water, find that deep sandgrass and grind for a big girl. Max, how about you?
I don't know how to follow that one up. That's a good takeaway there, Brian. Nice to hear you actually somebody, talking to you about fishing deep water and it resonating with you. Might see a newly reformed Brian Eckel here.
That's crazy.
2024 season.
Get him on the trolling motor.
I don't think sandgrass grows under docks, so
don't put me on a mission to prove you wrong, though.
All right.
I probably few big takeaways for me. I would say, just hearing about the key stuff. Like I said, he's a guy that we've been watching on our TVs for a long time. So it was cool just to kind of hear, about him, how he got connected with the, shooting the Keys Outdoors episodes and just kind of about some of his trips and whatnot. And just like going over past episodes of them being like, hey, do you remember that one time? Do you remember that one time you did that
acting
really
like
cool
fanboys
thing?
over here.
Like it felt like, yeah, you remember that time you caught a big fish and that was cool. That was pretty fun to like just kind of shoot the shit with him about that. As far as like tips, I think the biggest one that I took away, probably just because it's the closest to us, is fishing some big stuff on opener and not being afraid to, go after some larger fish. Types of different bodies of water to fish during opener. I thought that was all really good. I mean, there was a bunch of stuff I took away, but just, those I guess were some highlights. Gus, what about yourself?
Yeah, I definitely like that takeaway. Maybe we should try popping over to some flowages, maybe getting after some fish in different stages of, because everyone wants to, figure out that exact pattern for that post spawn period. It can be tough. It can be really good. So I think if we kind of add that to our repertoire, I think that would be pretty cool. I mean, obviously we're going to stay very, very mobile on opener as we always do, but yeah, not being afraid to throw big baits, big time. I definitely liked him talking about some of that night fishing stuff. That was definitely some pretty good knowledge there. Because everyone just says, oh, just go fishing into the night, but nobody really always talks about kind of like the tips, because it's intimidating for sure. The extra figure eights are key. Slow everything down. Glow tape here, tape over the lights, make sure you're not blind. The electrical tape over the one half of the backlight seemed pretty spot on here. And yeah, that was all good stuff. He was an absolute wealth of knowledge there, big time.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Well, yeah, that was I guess in the podcasting biz they call guests like that, great white buffaloes. It's like, man, I got it, you guys are looking at me very blank faced right now.
I've never heard of that.
I've never heard that term before. No.
It's like, the analogy, great white buffalo. You never heard that before?
Nah, great white shark, you mean?
No, it's like, I guess like you never thought you'd get him on. All right, well, whatever.
Like a unicorn?
Yeah, like a good,
Yeah.
You just cut this.
I got you now.
20-point buck.
We should probably read a book one of these days, maybe.
Yeah, go read some books. Yeah, no, it was great interview. Glad he hopped on with us. But we got some competition here this weekend, boys. Finally getting some competitive juices flowing again in the fishing world, even though it's on some hard water and we're not going after muskies. Nonetheless, still going to be it's going to be some fun. So what are some predictions? What are you guys feeling for this weekend? It looks like it's going to be brutally cold on Friday, and
I don't know why you keep saying that.
Learn how to read some weather.
Dog, we've been getting spoiled this winter, and winter's past. We've been, dealing with 0 degrees, -10 wind chills. I think we'll be just fine. Yeah, it's gonna feel a little bit colder than the last month has felt. Just gotta put the big boy pants on and go lead your team. All right.
All right.
That's my partsy right there. My partner right there.
Nothing but PVO out there. Positive vibes only.
Yeah, it's always PVO for you, Brian. That's for sure.
That's facts. And I'm not saying it's not going to be a challenge. Gus, do you have a talent? How many fish were caught last year in our tournament?
I think Max. Yeah, last year was tough, but I think one of Max's partners, T-Wet. He's got the board of all the fish numbers.
Oh yeah,
because we just go by total inches.
I was just thinking a Vegas line set for total fish caught, total fish registered in the tourney. I'm thinking probably
go team by team. What's the lines for each team?
You
can just do fish numbers, because if you tried to add up inches in your head right now,
I'm not doing inches line.
We'd be here for a long time.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin with that. But for Gus, me, and Jack, I think our total fish line for the 2-day excursion, man, we're probably looking at 27.5 fish.
Nice.
And I think Max and the old heads over there probably looking somewhere in the 24.5 ballpark.
Yep.
What? Okay. And I don't know what Vegas is thinking then. We're coming off a dub. So I don't know.
Calling it free money?
I'm not, apparently to you, it's, I don't know. Shit, I don't know. I guess I don't disagree. You guys, you're young, you're spry, you got younger legs. You got 3 seasoned fishermen, three seasoned ice fishermen on your squad. We got to be dealing with some external elements on our team.
What you mean by that, dog?
But no, wait, look, my squad, I got my guy T-Wet, and I got my guy Lanky J.
Shout out.
And Lanky J fishes, about once or twice a year. This weekend being one of the times. And I'll say this, he's a great ice fisherman. Guy knows how to pull northern through the hole. I'm a little bit worried about if we got onto like a walleye bite on one of the lakes we're going to. It's a good population of walleye in there, so a little bit more nervous if I get him into a pile of walleye, just because I feel like he's an aggressive ice fisherman. He really he leaves no doubt
mercy
when he sets the hook. So we'll see how it goes. I feel really good coming off the win last year. I think we can repeat. No reason why we couldn't. But yeah, looking forward to just a little friendly competition. That's all.
Very friendly.
Very friendly. Should be good.
Oh yeah, looking forward to it. Not enough snow really this year to be doing too many tackles out there. Some years we've had some pretty high snow out there to be able to just tackle. We're probably gonna be dealing with some either wind drifts and bald spots, but that's probably not gonna stop us, of course. So wouldn't be surprised if somebody goes on concussion protocol by Saturday evening, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's just part of it. You just gotta, like Brian said, positive vibes only. You get knocked down on the ice and bang up your arm. You got a bad wing or something. You gotta press on.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, we don't have anybody on the bench, ready to come out and join the squad. It's all we got, 3-on-3.
And I'm sure probably no one really cares, but I think we'll probably do like some sort of live leaderboard. Maybe see if anybody gets into it.
Yeah,
if anyone's bored this weekend, we'll do some stuff on there.
Muskie's on Tap Instagram. We'll do a live update on stories Friday and Saturday. Tournaments all day Friday, all day Saturday. For the total inches, the fish that count are going to be pike, walleye, and then bass, largemouth or smallmouth. tip-up fishing only, running some shiners and suckers, little walleye suckers out there. And yeah, just seeing what bites, and looking forward to that. And we'll give a recap on the next pod as well. For those that do maybe care, we'll just throw it at the end of the podcast, and so we don't bore anybody who doesn't like ice fishing right from the beginning.
Yeah, don't be afraid to slide in those DMs either on Friday, Saturday. Talk some shit. Doors open. So
predictions on which squad's gonna win, the young heads or the old heads.
Yeah, we'll embrace all the chatter. So maybe we'll even mess around and go live again.
That turned out well last time.
All right, fellas. Well, I think that probably wraps it up here tonight. Another long one. Sorry, Gus, for doing that to you again. But people seem to be enjoying some of the longer formats for the winter months. I don't mind it. It's fun to sit down and chat with you guys, and especially when you get a guest like Bryan on, and the guests we've been able to have. It's been a blast just chatting muskies, helping us get through this winter.
Yeah, I fully agree there. And yeah, like I said before, follow us on Muskies on Tap at Instagram. My guide service is Suggs Fishing at Instagram and Suggs Fishing Guide Service on Facebook. Hit me up about any inquiries on getting out on the boat this next summer. But with that being said, let's have none other than our very own Brian Eckel here take us away to end the podcast.
All right, everybody. Thank you again for listening to this episode. A shout out to Bryan Schaeffer for coming on, an absolute musky icon in the industry. Cannot wait to go see more of his videos with Keys this winter. Check them out as they come out every Sunday morning. We have the fishing marathon this weekend. Gus and I take on your very own Max Manti and his pair of old friends, man. I'm just worried about Jason having another knee injury. If we have to attend to him on the ice, it could get ugly. Stay tuned to see the final results. It might be a blowout. Peace.
Peace.